Hello, my friends. Thank you all for joining us in chat. It is a pleasure to see so many people here. What are we at now? 40, 50 viewers?
37.
Right on. 37 viewers. Well, welcome
38.
to the 37 of you who have joined us. I'm Clover. This is Gliperal. Below me, you see James Sinclair. Above me, you see Agent. And we are here as part of a collab between SudokuCon and a project that probably fewer of you have heard of, but I'm excited to tell you all about, called Secret Satan. First of all, SudokuCon is a in-person Sudoku convention that has been being planned for something like a year and a half at this point by a team including myself, Gliperal, and James. Ticket sales have now opened. So go to sudokucon.com/tickets. It takes place in Boston, Massachusetts, USA on April 3rd to 6th, 2025. So coming up in just 2 months. We've already sold, I think, something in the neighborhood of 80 tickets.
Somewhere around there,
So and we have some real luminaries who are going to be leading workshops and giving talks, and there's a lot of really interesting stuff planned. I am extremely excited about it. Yes, I am Clover. Our name tags are backwards. This is Gliperal. Um, so, Secret Satan. I'm going to let Gliperal tell you a little bit more about what Secret Satan is and what we're talking about today, because it is his baby. Uh, is there anything else that I need to say about SudokuCon?
yeah. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think that about covers it.
Go ahead and buy your tickets if you haven't already. We are really looking forward to seeing so many of you there in just a couple of months. And we're doing just a series of these streams kind of leading up to the con with various interesting solving and setting premises. So, Gliperal, tell us a little bit about what Secret Satan is and why this particular collection of people is here today.
So, Secret Satan is an event that started based on a typo that Punching Cato made about the original Secret Santa in the Cracking the Cryptic Discord server. That sort of became a little meme in and of itself, and then we just seized the opportunity to turn it into a Secret Santa event, but exclusively for very diabolical puzzles, which partly because me setting in Secret Santa, a lot of people wanted very easy puzzles, and I was like, no, I want to make hard puzzles. And so I just made my own event, and now here we are. We've got like around 20 to 30 people joining every year, and it's been a lot of fun.
And yeah, everybody on screen right now set puzzles for Secret Satan this year. I think you didn't necessarily intend to, but you intended to just run the event, but you got pulled in at the
Yep,
last moment
yep.
when one of our Satans dropped out.
I kind of figured that was going to happen. We've had a couple people drop consistently every year, so this year I decided to
Not the
just...
same people, to be clear.
Right. This year I decided to just be a backup setter, and that ended up being the correct decision.
Yeah, so everybody here right now set puzzles for Secret Satan this year, and we in particular have three people who we're going to be interviewing and whose puzzles we're going to be doing a deep dive into. And the first of those is Agent. So, Agent, go ahead and introduce yourself. Who are you? What are you doing here?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Agent. I make puzzles sometimes. Sometimes some of them are hard, especially the ones for Secret Satan because they're actually explicitly encouraged to be hard. And I have to say I really like my two participations in this event I've had so far. And part of it is it's an opportunity to set some ideas that you wouldn't normally play with otherwise, because often like very complicated and complex puzzles with the combination of rules that you don't see too much. They're like when you're not setting with a clear intention in mind, like when you don't know that there's someone who's looking for these types of puzzle. Usually, I try to kind of control myself a bit more, and if I have one crazy idea, I usually won't put another crazy idea in the same puzzles. But with Satan, all of that kind of goes away, especially with when I have victims like Bookworm or Mice Gator, who I know are very good solvers. So I think it's definitely opportunity for me to be a bit crazier with those rule sets. And I'm looking forward to see you guys trying it as well. So if I understand correctly, the idea was to find the break-in in 15 minutes, and I think it's possible. It's not entirely impossible, but I would be very impressed if you pull it off with this particular puzzle.
Yeah, our plan is to spend about 10 or 15 minutes chatting with you about your participation in Satan, and then James Gliperal and I are going to spend about 15 minutes seeing how much we can figure out what's going on in the puzzle we're looking at on screen right now. And yeah, I am also skeptical how far into it we're going to get, but then you'll also get another 15 minutes to talk with us and kind of walk us through your actual intended logic. So you kind of already answered my first question. This is your second year doing Secret Satan, correct?
Yeah.
So what made you originally join when you first saw the announcement that this was happening? Well, what made you think that you had to do this?
Well, I wanted to have one more reason to set a puzzle, basically, and I think it turned out to be a good reason because like usually the participants in Secret Satan are all very talented setters and solvers. And the first time my victim was Bookworm, and I remember Bookworm had like 10 different variants or puzzle genres listed in their preferences. So I basically just try to combine as many as many of them as possible into the same puzzle without having like and still having a sort of cohesive and a sensible rule set, which was quite interesting. But yeah, I don't regret it. Some of my most memorable sets have been through Secret Satan.
Yeah, I'm curious actually. This wasn't on my list of planned questions, but I'm wondering. So you seemed excited to get Bookworm as a solver in particular, and I believe you also called out some other potential solvers who would be particularly fun to get. Is there anybody on the Secret Satan list who you were afraid to be paired with, either as a victim or as a Satan?
Yeah, I'm always a bit scared of Filuta and also you to some extent, Gliperal, because I know you can have some very evil ideas. And I still think like there are some puzzles like Rosette or Castle in the Sky, which I'm not sure I will ever be able to solve. And maybe if I give like a whole week when I literally don't look at any other puzzles, I might be able to solve it, but I don't really understand how to approach them. So yeah, it's gonna be scary sometimes, but also I think that one of the ideas of, well, I guess any puzzle exchange, but in particular Secret Satan is you still you want the puzzle to make your victim suffer and really like drive them out of their comfort zone in terms of solving, but you still want them to be able to solve it eventually. So I will say I'm not, with that in mind, I'm not that worried
So,
about this.
so who was your victim this year, and what did they ask you for, if you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, my victim this year was Mice Gator. Their preference had, well, I know basically I kind of had to set the new Nuikabi because I know Mice Gator, their first 3 or 4 puzzles were Nuikabi hybrids. So I really didn't see a world where my Satan gifts to them will not involve Nuikabi in some ways. They also ask for Pentominus and Chaos Construction, which I did not actually include in this puzzle, but I think we both were quite happy with the kind of twist that this puzzle implements on the Nuikabi rule set.
Yeah, we're actually talking to MazeGator after we're done interviewing you, and I'd be curious to hear what MazeGator thought of your implementation of their requests. Also, you mentioned Faluta as a setter that you were particularly scared of receiving as your victim, and it made me smile because Gliperal and I actually ended up setting for Faluta this year. And I mean, that must be one of my proudest sets ever, honestly, is the fact that we managed to make something that took him 25 hours to solve, I think.
It was also pretty intimidating setting for him.
It was very intimidating, yeah.
We have a lot of respect for the guy, and trying to set
absolutely.
a puzzle of that caliber within like 5 days.
And also several of the things that he requested in his list were things that would have been very easy go-tos for you and I that he requested that we not do, and so we very much got pushed out of our comfort zone setting for him.
Like quick setting for Secret Satan is usually like, oh, just make a Japanese sums with a fun, name in the grid and like a weird rule set. And then he was like, okay,
no Japanese sums, specifically. No way. Agent, how long do you think you spent setting this puzzle that we're looking at right now?
Well, I guess 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, where I was kind of thinking about it. Well, I guess not. It's more than that. It's 2 weeks until I had the first test of the puzzle. Then I made a lot of changes even after the test because some parts of the puzzle didn't really work the way I wanted to. So I made some more changes in the next week or so. But most of it was really trying to come up with the rule set. And even after I had idea about the rule set, I still took me a while to really understand what the rule set means, because there are some spoiler alert, there are some secrets with the rule set that it's not written in the rules, but they do exist in the puzzle. So it took me a while to understand all of that. And then when I thought I kind of knew all there was to know about the rule set, it took me maybe 3-4 days to actually have the first working version of that puzzle. I think it helps a lot that it's a very, how to say, it's a kind of rule set that never breaks. There's no like number placement. There's no like they just 1 to 9 type of thing. There's no like a geometry constraint under the numeric AB 2x2. So you can basically do anything you want with it. I think that's one of the reasons why it didn't actually take me that long to set it compared to some other puzzles.
So I'm going to ask you a couple more quick questions before we look at the puzzle. So both by reputation, Agent, because we know you, and also because you are in Secret Satan this year, it is clear that you are somebody who appreciates very hard puzzles. And so one thing we want to talk with all of you about is, what is it about hard puzzles? So my first question is, what appeals to you about really hard puzzles? Is it the challenge? Is it like climbing a mountain? Do you think that there's a relationship between how hard a puzzle is and how good it is? What are your thoughts on setting specifically very, very hard puzzles?
Yeah, I think it's for the challenge and also for basically having a memorable experience. I like easy puzzles, and I would say that the percentage of hard puzzles I don't like is higher than the percentage of easy puzzles I don't like. But there are some hard puzzles out there which are really super memorable, where every deduction is like you learn something new, and it's done. Is executed brilliantly, and those kinds of puzzles are usually some of my favorite puzzles that I've solved. So I think it's little bit of both. It's I like to think about it as a high risk, high reward situation, where if you set a hard puzzle, it could be a terrible puzzle, but if you telegraph it well, if you have a good solution path and some interesting logic, it can also be a very awesome puzzle.
So I find it very interesting that you say that there's a higher percentage of hard puzzles you don't like than easy ones, because if you look at, say, Logic Masters Germany, I think that the very hard puzzles are much more likely to get rated very highly in terms of beauty. And we can speculate, I mean, there are a number of more or less obvious reasons that happens. But I'm curious, what's the difference for you between the hard puzzles you do like and the hard puzzles that you particularly dislike? I mean, what makes a bad hard puzzle bad for you?
Yeah. So speaking for myself, I don't think there is really like I probably have the same average rating for easy puzzles and hard puzzles. I think it really comes down to like is the difficulty uh, is the difficulty in the right place for me. So for example, one example that often comes up is if I solve a chaos construction, I usually prefer that the difficulty is in asking the geometry question and trying to understand how the clues interact with the regions rather than just the irregular Sudoku logic. Like usually, I will much prefer the chaos construction where you can basically like the region building and the Sudoku kind of go hand in hand. But yeah, and it's really there's no right or wrong answer. It's based on personal preference, and I think like there are when you go with hard puzzles, like everyone kind of likes different kinds of hard, so it's that makes it even more challenging to try to balance everything.
Well, I'm going to let Gliperal and James kind of take the lead on this, because now we're going to have a look at the puzzle that you set in particular. And now, Agent, you are more than welcome to chime in if you think there's a spot that would be interesting to unstick them, if you think they're close to getting it. Or you're more than welcome to just sit back and enjoy watching them struggle. But I'm going to have these guys take a look at your puzzle and see what we can work out on stream in about 15 minutes.
I have been staring at
Maybe
this and I
I'll
already have some thoughts.
maybe I could start with the cryptic hint if you want. So here's the hint. What do cave and slitterling and yin yang have in common? That's the hint.
What was the third one?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Checkerboard?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Okay.
This should help with the break-in, believe it or not.
Well, I have some thoughts about the break-in, but I'll...
Yeah, at least tell chat what the rules are first.
Yeah, maybe we should go through the rules. So, it looks like standard Nurikabe rules apply, meaning that, well, in the sense that there are going to be islands in the grid, and each island is going to have one clue that indicates the size of it. And then, in addition to standard Nurikabe rules, we're drawing a diagonal loop that goes through some cells, and then the diagonal loop visits a certain number of cells in each island, which is at least one, and that number of cells is also clued by exactly one clue within that island.
Good lord.
Oh, and then there's also something about the loop when it's not traveling on islands, it has to travel on ships, and there's exactly 6 ships in the grid. Which is interesting, but probably not relevant until the end of the puzzle. But I'm not sure. It would be kind of cool if it was relevant at the beginning.
Yeah, and then last but not least, the loop must actually visit. So you cannot have an island that's fully not visited by the loop.
Right. But I think this very suspicious 4 or 5 clue is probably relevant. And there's also going to be something about which parity of cells the loop is traveling on. But I haven't quite got enough to place any... Well, okay, I can place a single unshaded cell. That's what I can do. Oh, I can also place a single shaded cell because these groups can't be within the same island, or else they would have 3 clues in them. So I can shade that at the very least. But this 4 or 5 clue, the fact that all of the diagonal loop cells are going to be on the same parity within the grid, it means that this is going to have well, okay, 5 obviously has to be the size of the island, and then 4 has to be the number of cells visited by it. And all of those 4 cells have to be of the same parity. So I'm pretty sure this 4-5 clue has to be an X pentomino. It can't go here. It can't go there. It can't go there. So it's either doing this or this. So I get a single unshaded cell out of that. And based on the parity of the loop, whether it's traveling on these cells or these cells, we'd be able to figure out which one. But I haven't got further than that yet.
Is he onto something, Agent?
Yes and no. I mean, it's true, but there's still quite a bit of ideas left for the break-in.
I'm glad that y'all have me on this to represent the people who just have no idea how to approach these things, because I'm still trying to understand the rules.
Yeah, James, same here. I'm gonna reread the rules a couple of times, so if you're doing that too, don't feel uncomfortable about it. I'm literally about to pull this up on my phone so I can look at them very closely, as if that's gonna make it easier to understand.
Anyway, the thing that drives me crazy about Pinpa is that I can't look at the rules and the puzzle at the same time.
Another wild thing is, like, I wonder if the 7 and the 5 could be in the same region together. Because that strikes me as a lot of cells that the loop would have to take on the same parity. But I guess it could do something like that would be valid. So I don't necessarily know the 7 and the 5 are in different regions. It would be interesting if they are in different regions, because then the 5 has to get out somewhere. It has to visit another cell. It's probably not the 4, so it can't really escape that away. But it could be the 13. It could easily be a question mark clue. I guess I also know this cell is shaded, because if this were unshaded, then all 3 of these islands are going to join together. Which is not a particularly useful deduction, but...
Yeah, I mean, everything is true so far, which is probably not a surprise for anyone. But
can you scroll the rules down on this side? I can't read them in that font, so I just need to read the bottom part. Thank you.
so basically, it's like well, it's standard Nuekabe, but you have a loop that travels diagonally through the. I keep drawing edges, but I want to draw a loop. I want to draw a diagonal loop.
Come on, SudokuPad.
Come on, SudokuPad, we believe in you.
So, well, that's a very small loop, but it travels diagonally through the centers of cells. And with regards to the clue, as in standard Nuekabe, they must all be unshaded. But unlike Nuekabe, like you have 2 clues in each island, one of which is the size, and one of which is the number of cells on the loop in that island. So, for example, as Gliperal pointed out, this 4 here indicates there are 4 cells on the loop in that island, and then 5 is the size, because 5 is greater than 4, and you cannot have more loop cells than the size. And then you have basically you have a constraint on which cells the loop is allowed to travel through. It's either going to be Nuekabe cells, so you can have island cells, and then if at any point you enter a water cell, it has to be a ship that occupies this cell, and then by the time you complete a round trip passing through every island, you must have used a total of exactly 6 ships.
So let me just confirm my understanding of a deduction that Gliperal figured out about 10 minutes ago. So the 4-5 with the extra unshaded cell above it, the rationale for that is because it's a 4-5, it has to be cross-shaped, because that's the only way it has 4 cells of the same parity. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to travel across 4 of those cells with the diagonal loop, because it's a bishop's move, like it can only travel on cells that have the same parity, checkerboard-wise. So we know it's like a X-shape pentomino. we know it's not like shifted to the left or shifted to the right. Like the 4-5 clue is not in the left leg or the right leg, because it would end up with one of those other clues kind of like neatly tucked into its groin. And then, to put it bluntly, and then you wouldn't be able to unshade the other clue. So we know that it's either, the 4-5 is either like the bottommost cell in the island or it's the middle cell in the island. Am I following at this point?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, easy puzzle.
Okay, here's another interesting point I just spotted. This 3 in the center of the grid, I'm pretty sure... I don't think that can be the Nurikabe clue, because how could it possibly reach 3 cells to pick up another clue within its island? So that would have to be the number of cells visited by the loop in whichever region that is.
What's stopping it from picking up the question mark to its right?
It would be a Nurikabe region greater than size 3.
Oh, that 3. I thought you meant the 3 kind of above it there. I understand. Yeah, okay,
this
fair.
one could pick up the question mark.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
This guy is kind of isolated. And in fact, so is this 4? Yeah, that 4 is a bit isolated, isn't it?
Okay.
That 4 also can't get, and so is that 2.
Ooh, so is there a subset of numbers that we can mark like with a circle or a flash or something to indicate that they can't be sizes? That they have to be...
Well, Maze Gator is telling us in the chat that this is a red herring.
Oh, Maze Gator, no!
Although maybe that's a red herring. This is a
man.
Satan stream.
Well, I mean, at least we're in good company if Maze Gator spent a long time thinking about that.
Well, I do feel like these are the only 3 clues that we can validly mark like that. Like, every single other clue, I think, can... And there's so many question marks in the grid, like, there's a lot of freedom for those guys.
So that's a good question for Agent. On a very difficult puzzle, do you intentionally try to put in clues that are going to be red herrings and to mislead the solver? Because certainly with the difficulty that I usually aim for, I try to avoid that.
Yeah, I typically try to telegraph the solution path as much as possible. Of course, when it's a very hard puzzle, sometimes it looks like nothing is useful at all. So in that case, there is always a risk of getting stuck. But I think you were also quite quick to realize that the shape of the 4-5 island was maybe more restricted than the others. As at the moment, there is not much restriction on any of the other islands, except the shaded cells you have found. But other than that, there's not much yet.
Yeah, this is absolutely fascinating, and I want to keep staring at it, but unfortunately we only have about 10 more minutes with Agent,
so we should probably just ask him for the solution.
Agent, do you want to teach us about your break-in? Because I feel like chat also really wants to know what's going on here. And as much as I'd like to figure it out myself, I want to hear it from you. Yeah,
for sure. I can try to explain some of the concepts in this puzzle. Maybe I'll start with the checkerboard idea.
Which is the first word I said, by the way, so
Let's say you have... I'm just going to hypothetically draw this in the grid, assuming the X meta takes this shape. What you have now is you've created a chain of 3 islands connected by checkerboards. So there's this one here, which is connected to... That's another island here, so you can imagine those are all shaded cells, and then there's a 3rd island right here. And then I want to start by arguing, if you suppose that let's call these 3 islands, suppose they form a diagonal group, and they are the only islands in that diagonal group, meaning there's no other islands that touch those diagonally. I'm going to claim that it's not possible to have any other checkerboards inside that diagonal group. For example, if you try to put one here, how would you, suppose this is a third checkerboard in the group, how would you connect it to any of the islands without blocking some shaded cells? And the answer is you cannot do it, because if you go this direction, it traps those. If you go like this, it traps those shaded cells. So there's just no way to have any more checkerboards without trapping some shaded cells. And you could say, for example, that this island will be a different island. So let's say touch this, but now what you've done is you've added one more checkerboard, but you also added one more island. And essentially, you can prove that whenever you add one checkerboard into this same diagonal group, it needs to be part of a different island. So if you count the number of islands is 1, 2, 3, 4, and the number of checkerboard is one here, and one here. So you have 3 checkerboards and 4 islands, and you're always gonna have. You can never have the number of checkerboard is never greater than 1. The number of islands minus 1. In fact, it's going to be exactly the number of islands minus 1, assuming they're all part of the same diagonal group. So that's the first idea. I know it probably sounds a bit abstract so far, but you can also combine it with properties along the perimeter of the grid, where if you look closely at these clues here, you're gonna see something that's might look a bit suspicious. So I'm just gonna highlight all of them here, and basically I'm gonna claim that there are at least 6 islands on the perimeter. Well, there's one here because that's already double question mark. This is its own island because it cannot, if it tries to go up to the 2, it will touch this, and then that's already all the clues. Then those 3 must consist of at least 2 islands, and then those 3 consist of at least 2 islands. You cannot have those 2 because again it will touch this one, and that's too many clues on the island. So you get that you have at least 6 islands that touch the edge, and also there's exactly 6 shifts, meaning there's exactly 6 shaded cells on the diagonal loop. And now the reason this is interesting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you understand. You're starting to understand a bit.
Yeah, I see where this is going. That is so cool. Oh my gosh.
Because let me make sure that I'm following. So what you just figured out is that we can't connect edge islands to the bigger group without using a ship. And we have to use at least one ship to travel between. Because if we try to connect 2 edge islands to each other just directly by having like a land path between them diagonally, that would by necessity be cutting off some of the shaded cells and like sticking them up against the edge or like sticking them into a corner by themselves. Yeah, we can't do what Gliperal just put on the screen. Yeah, exactly. What Agent just put on the screen. Yeah, because we would have shaded cells in the top left corner, and that obviously just wouldn't work with the rules. So yeah, that's our ships accounted for, and now presumably we get some cute deduction based on the fact that we can't have any other ships. So now we're doing like no ships logic, right?
Well, for one, we know that there are exactly 6 groups.
Oh, yeah. Okay, true.
And
okay, so we get some combinations there.
And therefore, like, one of the 2 or 7 has to take that question mark. The 4, 9, and the 13 have to join together somehow.
Yeah, you need to have exactly 6 islands under perimeter, and also it tells you a couple of things about the way the loop travels, because again, let's go back to this example here where we had those two checkerboards. And
that doesn't work
basically,
anymore. Wow. Because it would need a ship to escape from the 4-5 island.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. Because you will have to, because they're all diagonally connected, like basically we prove that every ship needs to connect two different diagonal groups, meaning that you need to travel through each diagonal group on a single pass using no ships. And because you know there's one less checkerboard than the number of islands in the diagonal group, you need to have a loop segment on every checkerboard. But now how do you get 4? Well, you're going to have to exit the 4-5, but then this is either going to be another island, but you cannot, if it's a checkerboard, then you either have to add another island or you need to trap shaded cells and it just won't work. You're going to have to get some shaded cells eventually on the path, but then it's this shaded cell does not connect two different diagonal groups, so it will be at least 7 ships.
That is so cool. That's what a break-in. And therefore the 4-5 has to go upwards, and therefore the 2 can't join the question mark, and like I bet a bunch of other stuff falls out of that. That's really cool.
You want to solve it later?
Sure.
Yeah. Let's do it. Oh man, thank you so much, Agent, for sharing that with us. That is quite a puzzle. Oh man, and props to Palfly in chat for figuring that out moments before we had you reveal it.
It's impressive.
Yeah. Where can folks find the link to try this puzzle themselves if they've been inspired? Can you stick that in Twitch chat, or can you? I guess he did send it to us, so we could put that in Twitch chat for him. Yeah, if somebody could just put that in chat.
I'll show the LMD link if anyone wants to.
Perfect. That way people can register too. Fantastic. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, we will share that with chat. Agent, do you have any last remarks? I know that you can't stick around for the panel discussion at the very end. I know you're gonna have to run, and we're gonna go into a really quick break just to pull up Maze Gator's puzzle because he's gonna be on next. But do you have any last comments you want to make to chat about this puzzle, about Secret Satan?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun. Hope it was fun and interesting for you guys too, to basically try to have a glance of what kind of craziness is present in this puzzle.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and I suspect that probably went a long way to inspiring some folks in our chat right now to try the rest of it themselves. So, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we're gonna go into a very quick tech break just to make sure we can get Maze Gator's puzzle up and working. And thanks for joining us, Agent. Chat, we will see you shortly. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking around with us, chat. Can I get chat just so I can see them all deeding and duding for us? So we've now swapped over from Agent to Maze Gator, another of our Secret Satan setters. Maze Gator, welcome. You wanna go ahead and introduce yourself? Talk a little bit about your experience in Secret Satan this year and your background as a setter.
Sure. So I'm a newer setter. I came into Cracking the Cryptic around 2021, and I was exclusively a solver for about 3 years. And I never dreamt that I would start making my own puzzle, but I had a random idea over the summer and I tried it, and it wasn't as well. I always tell people it's simultaneously harder than I thought it would be, and it's easier than I thought it would be. I thought it would be breaking puzzles, every 15 minutes, but it's really wasn't that big of a deal. And I became friends. I'm good puzzling buddies with somebody else in the community, Shintaro, and he was the one who actually pinged me and said that we should do this together. And at first I said, no, I don't think I'm ready for it. But he said, no, it'll be fine. We'll help each other like we usually do, and we'll do it. And like you were talking with Agent, I think it stretched my horizons as a setter, and I think it was a lot of fun.
So Maze Gator, were you always drawn to more challenging puzzles, or did you go through a phase of primarily wanting to set and solve easier stuff before you arrived at a point where you were doing things like Satan?
I think I've always been drawn more to the, not necessarily harder puzzles, but I like the hybridization of ideas. Any puzzle that combines one or more rule sets for interesting deductions is one that I'm likely to enjoy a lot. And for that reason, I really like shading genres, like Narakabe, with the one that Agent made for me that we talked about in the last slot, Cave, Yin Yang. All those pencil puzzle hybrids is like another added layer of logic that you can add into the standard Sudoku. That's the type of puzzles I really enjoy the most.
So what do you think makes a great challenging hybrid? What are some qualities that a really solid, really difficult hybrid puzzle has?
Well, any time that the combination of rule sets leads to certain secrets, like Agent's puzzle that we were just talking about was like the perfect example of it. You have Narakabe and you have a diagonal loop and you have a set number of water cells that could be on the loop. Like that, those ideas in and of themselves don't immediately, it doesn't seem like there would be anything special about that, but I think figuring out those secrets of the rule set is what's most fun to me.
It made me laugh at myself because I ascribed absolutely no significance whatsoever to the 6 ships as opposed to some other number of ships. I mean, I was so just blindsided by that I wasn't even looking for multiples of 6 of something in the grid at first. That felt like it just absolutely came out of nowhere, but then felt so natural, like uncovering a secret that had been there for the whole time. That was really a very cool puzzle.
That's why hard puzzles are fun to me, is uncovering those secrets. And I think it's cheesy to say, but it almost gives you like a telepathic connection with somebody else, which I think is really fun and interesting.
So if you enjoy kind of the joy of the hunt, trying to find what the setter has hidden from you, what are your thoughts, if you have any to share, about the relationship between telegraphing difficulty and how good or how successful a puzzle is? Would you rather solve something where you kind of have to really hunt and check every possible angle and discover something that's been carefully hidden from you? Or are you more, I'd rather a very challenging idea, but I want it to be telegraphed very clearly, or somewhere in the middle?
I think either one. I don't have a preference for either one of those. I think both of those styles can be fun to solve for me. So as long as it's got good implications or interesting relationships between the rule sets, I'm totally in for it.
So who was your victim this year, and what did they ask you for?
My victim was Itrio, and I honestly don't remember exactly what he had asked for, but I remember when I saw it was him, I had done a couple Itrio puzzles before. More than a handful. I would say I've solved a good 10 or so. My favorite Itrio puzzles are the ones that I was just telling you about, where there's some sort of shading angle to it. And then he loves loops. So like I saw he posted one yesterday, I think, and it's on my queue to do soon, but it's a yin yang puzzle, but the shaded cells have a German whisper. And that wasn't a loop, but you get the point where he likes to combine shading genres with Sudoku in a way that there's an additional constraint that's kind of hidden. So I thought it would be fun to kind of try to emulate his style for this challenge. But as great as Ichiro puzzles are, they tend to be 2-3 stars, and that wasn't quite the difficulty expectation of Secret Satan, I know. So then I thought, well, why don't I try to do 4 of them and throw them all together in the same grid? I kind of, for that aspect of it, I took inspiration from another one of Agent puzzles that he published over the summer, I think. It was called Shady Philomeno, I think. And it was a blank grid, but they were basically quadrants, and you had to figure out which shading genre corresponded to which. So that was my main inspiration for this. It looks like a busy grid at the start, but the basic premise is that somewhere in this larger 19 by 19 grid, there are 4 puzzles that you have to find and solve. And each one of the 4 has a different shading genre. And then there's also a loop that goes in between all 4 grids where there's a different rule for how the loop moves and the constraints for the digits that are on the loop.
So what was the difference for you between setting for Itrio and setting to kind of a particular spec versus the setting that you just do to share an idea with the community or to get something out of your own head? Did you find that to be harder, easier? How did that change the process for you?
So I had the idea, and then I did not put what's not pencil to paper, but I didn't. What would be the idiom that you would say? I didn't put mouse to penpa for quite a while. I kind of let it sit and stew for about a week, thinking about what type of shading genres do I want? What sorts of loop movements do I want? What sorts of interesting ideas do I think could there be in terms of marrying up certain combinations of rule sets? And so I kind of let my subconscious chew on it for a while. And then I tend to set and solve actually kind of bit by bit. I don't get a ton done if I sit down and, I don't have marathon setting or solving sessions very often. I'll kind of do a bit and then take a step back, let it keep percolating in my mind while I'm doing something else. And I find some of my eureka moments come at times when I'm least expecting them, like on my commute or in the shower or in the 5 minutes before I wake up. When I've woken up, but I'm not fully up, I tend to have a lot of ideas in that time.
So I'm going to have you talk us through the rules of your puzzle, but try not to give anything away about how we're supposed to be approaching this yet. So,
Sure.
And be aware, anything you draw on the grid right now, our audience will also be able to see and we'll be able to see. So talk to us a little bit about what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so the rule set is very extensive, and I would not usually set a puzzle that had this many rules. I know that's one of the things that solvers sometimes get annoyed at when they have to read so many rules. But I thought for Secret Satan it was okay, and especially because I was broadening my horizons at least. So I talked about there's 4 grids in the overall grid. They could potentially overlap. These shading rules are Nurikabe, which is standard. Well, actually, it's not standard. I flipped the shading for a particular reason. So instead of shaded cells being water as they usually are, shaded cells are island. And I did that to align with the snake egg, actually. I remember that's why. So there's Nurikabe, cave, yin yang, and snake egg. And then the loop movements are different for each of those. So in the Nurikabe, the loop has to hit every island exactly once and take only 1 cell per island. In the cave, the loop can only move in the cave cells. I just thought Simon's always careful on CTC to explain all the rules, but I imagine anybody who's watching SudokuCon Twitch is going to be at least somewhat conversant with the intricacies of those rules. So let me know if I should go into any more detail. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the rules, but
no, please do go into detail. a lot of people who are just coming from Sudoku backgrounds and not familiar with all of these pencil puzzles.
Oh, okay. So, well, Narakabe was the same as Agent was saying. So there's islands and water, and you cannot have 2x2s of water, and all the water has to be connected. In cave, there are clues that show you how many cave cells there are, kind of looking in all four directions before you hit the wall, which are shaded. In yin yang, there are two colors, shaded and unshaded, and all the shadeds have to connect, all the unshadeds have to connect, and you can't have 2x2s of anything. And snake egg was a newer one to me. That was the one that I was least familiar with. I definitely solved the least amount of snake egg puzzles. But for my snake egg, you have to draw a snake, which is the exact same as the loop in my puzzle. And what's left behind are 8 areas, all of different sizes in the grid, 1 through 8. And then each one of those eggs is how they're called. Each egg has to have a circle clue that indicates its size.
And is the grid divided into evenly sized quadrants? I know this would be answered by my reading the rules more carefully, but is it just we don't know which quadrant is which, or are they...
No, they can
overlap?
overlap.
Okay.
The Sudoku grids can actually...
Okay, explain what's happening to me here then, because I can't see the rules very well from where I'm sitting. So what's going on with like the overlapping slash subdivided grids?
So 19 by 19. So for example, this could be a grid. Is that 9 by 9? Looks close to me. This could be the Narakabe, for example, and then this could be the cave.
Okay, so we're actually having a little bit of an issue with the puzzle sharing, and we can't see what you're drawing right now. So tell us, and we'll draw it so the viewers can see it.
Okay, I drew a box kind of in the middle on the right side. That's 9 by 9. You can completely overlap. So the rules say nothing about quadrants or nothing about, they have to be kept separate. You can overlay the grids on top of each other, potentially.
And does everything have to be part of at least one grid?
No, not necessarily. It's 19 by 19 overall, so there's necessarily going to be some empty cells.
Okay, that's... Wow. Okay, there's a lot happening here.
I don't begrudge anybody who opens this puzzle and says, no, I'd rather solve something else.
So bear with us for one moment. We're just trying to refresh the puzzle link so we can all see what each other are drawing in the grid.
Sure.
And then we're gonna have these guys have a look at the break-in.
Well, and I'll jump in and say that I might not be quite as useless in this one because I actually tested this puzzle, and absolutely loved it. It took me 9 hours over several days, and I think I've compared it to like it's like a gripping novel, where like you're not going to solve it in one sitting, but just open it in the tab, check in whenever you have some time, and sooner or later you'll find yourself hooked to it. But it's really amazing how it just kind of no step is too difficult, but everything is really challenging and rewarding.
Well, that's what I was about to ask James, actually, is so the 9 hours, was the bulk of that trying to figure out some massive complex break-in? Was it chipping away at tiny little deductions? Was it a mix of both?
Yeah, I think a lot of chipping away, and in a good way. I think that sometimes that sounds a little bit pejorative, but yeah, I mean that's my memory of it. Just each individual puzzle is a great puzzle on its own.
And now we can see what Maze Gator is drawing in the grid. Fantastic. Okay, so we can see now. So Maze Gator, feel free to say anything you have to say about the rule set that would benefit from our chat being able to see.
This could potentially be the cave. We don't know. And then the Narakabe could be something like this. Man, it is hard to count 9 cells. That's something like so. Different color pen tool, I think, is essentially a must. I always spend too much time worrying about the notation too when I solve. So I enjoy pondering things like, oh, I wonder what color I should make, or I wonder what convention I should adopt. So what I personally did when I set it and when I tested it is I drew the Sudoku grids with the pen tool, just different colors.
All right, so let's have a look at this then. So I'm just pulling up the rules on my end.
So I have a couple thoughts immediately about some of the grids being more restricted than others.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, the Nurikabe grid and the Snake Egg grid, I believe, cannot have two circles next to each other because those clues would occupy the same region. So
Precisely.
this, for example, cannot be...
Ooh.
This restricts this area. None of this can be part of either the Snake Egg or the Nurikabe grid, I believe, because it's only 8 cells wide. It would have to necessarily put these two into the same region. These also cannot be part of the same grid because it would necessarily, if it starts in the bottom left, it would put these two A's into the same region. And if it starts down here, then it would end up putting...
To the right of that, the bottom edge, right?
It would end up putting these two O's into the same box. And then also, the Snake Egg has to have exactly 8 circles in the grid, I think, since it has... And that strikes me as very restricted. I don't see many places in this grid where that's possible.
You're boiling hot.
Yeah, if I recall, that was the first major step that I made about the 8 circles.
Interesting. So, I mean, there are a lot of circles in the grid. Where can we get down to only 8 circles?
That's the hard part, is how do you narrow it down?
Oh, man. I mean, obviously my first instinct is to just take the naive approach and just start plonking 9x9 grids down and eliminating potential, like, top left corner locations of 9x9 grids. But there's got to be something more elegant than
I guess, okay, it is Snake Eggs. We know it definitely can't cross over here because they would be in the same region, so we can eliminate all of these cells right off the bat. We can eliminate it crossing up here, so I think none of these cells could be in that region. It can't cross here, so none of these cells could be in that region. It can't cross any of these, so I can eliminate all of those.
So we're specifically going for the Snake Egg here?
Yeah, I'm going for the Snake Egg. It now can't fit down there. It can't cross this border,
Yeah,
so it can't take any of those.
Beautiful.
That's
can't fit there either because that's not 9, yeah. Can the one on the left edge go? Yeah, no, it can't. Oh, we're just... this is a very different character from what Agent showed us. Assuming that we are on the right track here with just kind of chipping away the
Agent's Puzzle,
grid.
I commented in the chat that in order to even start Agent's Puzzle, you had to understand some of the secrets. For this one, I knew there was going to be a lot going on, and so I didn't want any specific deduction to be that hard. I think the challenge of this puzzle is just the length and keeping the rules organized. So I didn't aim to make most of the deductions super hard.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, just from the limited kind of view of these that I've gotten so far, that this is a puzzle where you have a better chance of kind of figuring out the implications of the rule set on the fly, kind of as you're making deductions you do understand that might reveal something else and cause you to understand something further. Whereas Agent's Puzzle that we just looked at, in order to get into it at all, you really have to have sat down and had a proper think about the implications of the rules and, you know, what we know about the fact that shaded cells have to all be connected to each other, etc.
Exactly.
All right, Gliperal, have you gotten us down to a single 9x9 area, my friend?
No, I definitely have not, but this definitely already contains 8 circles in it. And it therefore can't go to the left.
Yeah, we can't go
right,
left or right.
So we can eliminate this entire row. And we can,
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, because it would necessarily contain...
Yeah, I understand, because that's a subset of that. Understood, okay.
And we can probably do the same with this, maybe?
We didn't gain a circle by going down by 1, so we really only have 7 now.
I suppose it could. Therefore, this could be the Snake Egg.
Foulfly makes an interesting point in the chat about how the 4 cells that are diagonally connected can't be in the Snake Egg.
Oh, because Snake Egg is a checkerboard genre, right?
Yes.
Is it? Okay. Oh!
Could you not have the snake do something like this and have that be a 1 and a 2?
Wait.
Yeah, Palpai was talking, I think, about the IWA kind of in the lower leftish area. Like that, right. So I'm chuckling to myself because Clover said, "Oh, I'm sure there's something more elegant than this," and I was panicking in my head. I said, "Oh, yes, there was, but I forgot what it was." But that is
Okay, so help me out. Explain to me why that can't be part of the snake egg.
Because
Explain like I'm very dense.
So these would all be separate eggs.
They would.
They would have to be separated by snake, but this is just the snake.
Oh, duh. Okay, understood. Yeah, we already have the head and the tail, and then what else do we do, I guess?
And that means, therefore, we can't start, like, anywhere down.
Well, wait a second. Maybe I just don't understand snake egg. So what's keeping that from being the head and the tail, and the whole snake from kind of wrapping around to the top right of the grid? So, like, what you just drew, where you just said these have to be
there's
snake.
There's an overall loop that goes in between
loop.
all the grids.
Got
and
it.
for the snake egg puzzle, the loop follows the snake exactly. So,
so
the head and the tail of the snake egg is on the border of the grid would be the implication.
Right.
Understood.
That makes sense.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so we can't include that area.
Yeah, so if the snake took any of these cells, it would necessarily encapsulate this little 4 region, which is not allowed.
Definitely can't take those. And it can't take the A there either, because...
Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... Yeah, it can't take any of these cells by the same logic, because it would push into that...
And then, of course, can't take the IW or A themselves at this point. Ooh, it's really narrowing down. This, I mean, I don't want to say anything negative about Agent's puzzle because that was drop-dead gorgeous, but at the same time, this is the kind of extremely challenging puzzle that I find more appealing to me, at least in genres that I'm not extremely familiar with, which includes the majority of loop and shading genres, where you almost feel like you can have one good idea and then kind of chip away using that one good idea, and then you kind of need to have another good idea. So our good idea right now is the whole, okay, there are certain configurations of circles and counts of circles that we can't do in Snake Egg. And where are we now? So it has to include that?
I believe these cells are necessarily, therefore, part of the 9x9 Snake Egg wherever it goes.
So is that going to give us any snake in that area?
I don't think so, because all we have is 2
Yeah, we really
digits.
don't have much. So now we have to have another good idea.
Remember the thing...
I'm just scanning the chat for ideas. Timotab makes a good point about how the 2 circles with W's in them can't both be in the snake egg.
Oh, I kind of love that. Thank you, Timotab.
And therefore this circle with the W can't be in at all.
Yeah, and absolutely can't start at the bottom or really anywhere below the lower W. Like, yeah, that whole area is right out, so we get more commonalities. Oh, that's gorgeous.
And then this.
Yeah, and we've also got 2 circles with A's.
Oh, and then once it comes up to this A,
2 A circles, we can't go left now. Oh, that's so cute. I kind of love that.
Which forces it to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And now it definitely can't take all of these circles. That would be way more than 8. It's already got 5, so it can't take all of those. So it's going up at least to here. And I think that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
We only get... Yeah, we can't go down because that would give us 2 more circles, and we have found our snake egg.
And now we can't
Beautiful.
do the thing... I'm pretty sure this has to be a 1 because it's got to be separated from all of those circles.
Mm-hmm.
Which I now realize I used shading for...
Well, we could draw the outline with the line tool at this point.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be the smart
we
way
could
to do
draw
it.
in our grid. So Maze Gator, when you were setting this, so your reaction does suggest to me that, like, yes, we have found kind of the intended first series of steps here. Is this the first part of the puzzle that you set, or was it set more holistically, or something in between?
Yes. So I kind of narrowed down where I wanted the snake egg to be. And then I found out the hard way that snake egg as a genre is incredibly restricted. And to my knowledge, at least, there does not exist any solving crutches that I could use. So I set some Star Battle puzzles in there. I found a Star Battle solver, which kind of helped me out a little bit.
You should have asked, what is it, Glum Hippo, who I think enumerated all possible 1 through 8 snake eggs in 9x9.
Yeah, I asked Chameleon, and I should have asked Glum Hippo for this, but I basically spent probably 45 minutes just by hand bashing, trying to find something that would work from this point.
Yep.
I found what has to be the only possible way that it works. But yes, this was the first part of the puzzle that I sent.
So Gliperal's just going to carry on solving into it. Go on. I'm not going to stop you.
I'm not actually convinced that this has to be a 2, because the snake could do something like that and then just end here. It does have to go through this channel, though. Oh, and these have to be separated, so the snake has to go through this channel as well, and that gives us more egg there and there, and that has to corner, and the snake can't take that cell. And it has to come through this channel as well, because of that A.
So another part about the rule, this is my least favorite part, by the way. I realize this is an inelegant way to treat this, but there's some gold X's in the grid that we haven't addressed yet. Those are cells where the loop cannot cross.
They weren't hearing you, sorry. I muted you by accident.
I see, understand.
Okay, so yeah, talk through that again one more time, Gliperal, because I'm also just picking up on that. So because we can't cross the gold X in the topmost row, kind of towards the right there.
Yeah, well, even if we could cross the gold X, if the snake exited the grid up here, then this end, which can't come down here, or else it would make a very small snake, it would also have to exit up here somewhere. And then these ends would just join, and that would be the entire loop, since it also... Or could it...
What? Wait, what? What's the issue with that?
Could the snake do something like this, but then have the loop ends exit like that and like that?
It can only enter each grid once.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha. So that does preclude the possibility that these ends exit up here, and therefore they have to join.
So that guy just travels to the perfect, and that is in fact a 2. Okay, so your thoughts on the sacrifice that you made there, Maze Gator, to create a reasonably solvable puzzle. So tell me about those golden X's, because I know as a fellow setter, I would have had big feelings about putting that into a puzzle.
I would, so, and actually, the gold X that became relevant in this part of the solve actually was not there for a very long time. That gold X actually came about because of James's very helpful solve. He realized that I had overlooked that option very early on. And so I had to add it later, but it became necessary in one of the other grids. By the time I had gotten to that point, I was 2.5 grids down, and there was like probably 4 or 5 days left before I had to get it finished. And so I could not see another way that I could more elegantly make it unique other than to add the X's. But also, I haven't talked about the coloring and the title and the shading and whatnot. So I happen to know that Itrio is a proud alumnus. He published a puzzle actually that was called Alma Mater, and it had the Iowa State logo. And my setter name actually is related to the 2 universities that I have a deeper connection to me. So I wanted to make it something related to Iowa State, and that's where the cipher came from. That's where the title Cyclone came from. That's the nickname of the university. And that's where the color scheme for red letters and cardinal letters and gold X's came from.
So I have one other interesting point, is that because of loop end counting, we have 3 ends coming into this top left area.
Okay,
therefore,
so
one
exits
has
up there.
to escape, and therefore these 2 ends here, they can't both escape down here, so they either have to join to each other, or one of them is exiting and these guys are joining like that. I don't immediately see what that gives me. I guess I can't have that corner, can I? Because this green, it can't join to this guy, or else it's isolating this snake end. It has to join to one of these 2. And it can't join to this guy, or else it's isolating this snake. So I think it has to join to this one. So I get this at the very least.
Explain that to me one more time.
So if I were to shade this cell, the snake would necessarily have to go like that. And then this guy, in order to join to one of the eggs, would have to join to this one, or I suppose this one, but that would be definitely
way
more
too
than
big.
9
Okay.
cells, and that would trap this snake.
That would trap that end. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Understood. I almost wonder, just glancing at this, if we're about to have to do something with the fact that we've eliminated 2 of the small digits for A, because A can no longer be 1 or 2. Are we about to get to do something fun with that? God, that would be delightful. But that is just wild speculation on my part.
I almost want to say it can't do this, because that looks difficult. That would unshade all of these and that guy, and that would have to be the end of the snake.
Interesting. So that would give us a snake, well, that would give us a snake with 2 circles in it. Would it not?
Oh, and actually the A could just...
It would give us a snake with that A circle in it, and then also it would go around and... Oh, but it wouldn't connect there. Okay, so we'd need a... Yeah, we need like another...
It would have to do something like that.
It would. Oh, interesting.
A could be 8, 3, that goes down.
That would be 3. There is like
I
a...
don't immediately see anything wrong with this.
This may be a red herring that I'm introducing of my own accord, but there is a limit on how many loop cells we can have in total in Snake Egg, correct? And it's like fairly limited.
Well, we know exactly how many loop cells we have.
So like it's relatively limited, so the loop can only get like so wiggly.
True.
And are we approaching that at this point? Are we in we're in speculation world right now, right? Like that the horizontal thing is not necessarily known. Okay. No,
I guess we do know that this either goes to the left or it goes up, so we know this is unshaded for sure, and either joins to this or this, depending on which way the loop goes.
So I'll jump in. I'll give you a hint. So Gliperal, if you make the cell to the left of the A part of the snake, and then see what happens as a result of that.
The one on the right side has to be the one that escapes, and then that has to go around. Okay.
So now it's broken because the snake cannot touch itself, and the O and the U up at the top left can't get out.
Oh, because it can't go through the golden cross. And it also can't take a
Oh,
turn and then turn left. Well, there we go. Okay. So I mean, really,
right.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay, gotcha.
So is that why that golden cross is in the grid?
Not necessarily. So you cannot you can't cross through a circle that's outside the grids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do we know for sure that circle... I'm curious about like the situation of this before that golden cross was introduced then. Do we know for sure that circle is not in any grid?
Well, that was the thing that I had overlooked that, and James brought that up as a possibility I had totally not considered.
I see. Okay. That makes sense.
So the snake, what we've decided is it can't go up this way, it has to go that way. And then we get all of the other deductions that fell out of that.
So that's shaded, yep.
And now you know where that's one end
where
of
the
the
snake
snake
exits on the left wall there.
Mm-hmm. So these two join. This guy's going to exit somewhere out there. This is definitely 3, 4, 5.
Then we have an exit to the left, so we have another shaded cell.
I guess it could exit that way, or even that way.
Shaded cell to the left of row 4, column 1. Correct?
True.
So also 1 to 8 are the size of the eggs too, Gliperal.
Yes.
Ooh, so are we missing something relevant there? Curious.
Well,
well, it does restrict how the 2 kind of bottom right corner loop ends are and aren't allowed to connect to each other, because I guess that can't end up being 2.
I guess I was looking at this as a possibility, but that's not, is it? Because that would be a size 9, and then this, if this were unshaded, it couldn't join to this guy, and it couldn't join to that guy without isolating the snake. So,
okay, so that's shaded. So we make it all the way down to that corner. Beautiful.
This guy is 3, 4, 5, or 6. This guy is 5 or 6.
Ooh.
This guy...
So is A definitely going to... Oh, no. I was going to ask if A was definitely our size 8 one.
Yeah, actually, this one could get quite large. This one could also get quite large.
All right, just so you guys know, we have about 5 more minutes with Maze Gator and his puzzle.
Although, interestingly, this one, it's restricted to a few options. It can't go like this, because that would make it size 9. So it has to come up oops, it has to come up at least to here, and then it either does this and it's size 6, or it does this and it's size 3.
So then we have a 3, 4, 5, 6 quad, so the other two are 7 and 8.
We do. And in order for this to be 7 or 8,
that's got to be pretty substantial.
yeah, that it can get at most. Well, that would be 7 from here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That would also be 7, but it can't do that. So it takes this cell for sure.
Why can't it do that?
Because then this would be shaded, and the snake.
Oh,
would not
true.
Be able
Okay,
to
understood.
connect through there.
Okay.
Well, I guess with oh no, it could do that. I forgot about that option.
All right, I'm gonna actually have to stop because I want to give Mazedigator a chance
Fair,
to say
fair.
anything else that he wants to say about this puzzle or his Secret Satan experience. Yeah, anything else on your mind after watching us struggle with it? Did we pretty much get it?
Yeah, no, you're definitely on the right track, and hopefully, if James is right that this is like a gripping novel, this inspires some more people to have a crack at it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Somebody, if somebody could throw the link to this into our Twitch chat, that would be fantastic. Because once again, I think we absolutely are going to have folks in chat who are inspired to take a second look at this, who might have been a little intimidated by it otherwise. Do you have any last words for our chat about your puzzle or about Secret Satan?
Again, I thought it was simultaneously, just like when I started setting, it was harder and easier than I thought, but infinitely way more fun than I thought it would be as well. The experience of getting to set a puzzle specifically for somebody else, I think is pretty special. And then to have somebody else set a puzzle specifically for you is very, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely one of my favorite things about the puzzle community online is how focused we are on the idea of just kind of gift giving and on, you know, creating things for each other. And I think that that has always been kind of a part of the community for as long as I've been in it, at the very least. People tend to jump at the opportunity to create something, putting just hours and hours and hours of their time into something for someone else who they might not even know. I mean, I think my victim was somebody who I had barely ever spoken to, and yeah, I mean, it was really inspiring to set for someone in particular who I knew would really enjoy and cherish the puzzle. Yeah, great experience, and thank you for sharing your puzzle with us, and thank you for sharing your thoughts, Mazegator. If you are able to hang around, we're going to do like a little kind of group panel discussion after the next interview, which is going to be with Samu Piano, so feel free to hang out with us, stay in the call. We're going to go into like a quick, maybe 10-minute break, get things set up with Samu, and then we will be right back. See you guys soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are now here with Samo Piano, who is the third of our three Satanic interviewees today. So, welcome, Samo. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, and thank you for setting this beautiful monster that we see on screen right now. So, let me have you go ahead and introduce yourself. Who are you? Who are you as a setter? And who are you as a Satan?
Yeah, I am Sam Piano. I am, well, I'm a decently new setter when it comes to Satan-ish puzzles. Up until pretty recently, I only set up to about 4-star difficulty on LMD, but somebody talked to me and they told me that I should try to join Secret Satan and just see what happens, and I obliged. And so here we are with a bagel, and yeah, it really was an experience setting this, but I think we'll get into that.
So
Yeah.
Was this your first year participating in Secret Satan?
Yeah.
So what do you think it was about your puzzles and your style that made your friends suggest that you should take part in this? Was it just on a whim, or do you think that there was something in there that suggested that you might be well suited to make a really horrible monster?
Well, I have been like starting to get more experience with solving difficult puzzles, and like started figuring out what deductions are fair and what are not. Basically, how to make a hard puzzle without it being unfair. And a few people recognized that, and they talked to me and said, you should try participating in this. And yeah, the puzzle that really prompted this whole thing, at least me joining this, was I made a chaos deconstruction with 3 good 5U, and it was super fun to make. It was really a beast to try to make it, but it was an absolute blast. And I'm like, if I could make more puzzles kind of in this vein, that would be fantastic. And so, yeah.
So one thing I was really hoping to have some conversations with about, and this will come up during the panel discussion at the end again as well, but is something that you also just brought up a moment ago, which is that something on your mind was, how do I set a hard but fair puzzle? And that's near the top of my list of questions for people who are specifically interested in setting really hard puzzles, because it's something that I've struggled with, I've held various opinions on kind of over the course of my setting career. So have you come to any kind of summarizable conclusions about that? What are your thoughts on setting something that's hard but fair? And also, secondary question, is this puzzle fair?
Well, I think this puzzle is fair for a very particular reason that I think we're going to get into eventually. But I have struggled quite a bit with the question of how do you make a puzzle hard but fair. And I think there's quite a few ways that you can interpret that. And I think it really comes down to the type of puzzle that you want to set. For instance, if you want to set a puzzle that's super heavy on theory, that's great, and you can do that. But it needs to be clear, I think, that you need to do something very theoretical in order to proceed. Like you need something maybe global or some kind of theoretical break-in. But you
So
can
really,
also
I guess the
have
question I should have
just
asked you is what
sorry?
is fair? I guess the question I should have asked
Oh
then is
yeah,
what
yeah.
is a fair puzzle then?
In my opinion, a fair puzzle is a puzzle that I personally am able to test solve without bifurcation. Hopefully, during the process, I can just notice like signposting things that are going to be important for either the break in or a particular step. So, like, if one of my earlier puzzles that was hard, but maybe not entirely fair, one particular step just featured a cell that wasn't marked in any way and didn't look really any different from any other cell. And it was just kind of in the middle of nowhere. And people maybe complained about that a little bit. And it was really a good learning experience for me. So, yeah, I think a fair puzzle needs to be kind of well signposted, well telegraphed what you need to do, but maybe the implications of what exactly it is aren't so obvious. And you have to kind of think about it for a little while.
Okay, so one reason a puzzle might be monstrously hard is just because it's unfair. What else makes a
Yes,
puzzle monstrously
particularly.
hard or satanic in your mind?
What I think makes this one hard is just the scale of it. This is just a really large puzzle. It's 8 9x9 Sudoku grids, and at times it may seem like it would be difficult to figure out where to look in order to proceed. So that can make things difficult. Just if you have a really big puzzle, that can make it difficult. Other things that could make it difficult are like having to use implications of rules or having to figure out the implications of the rules before you can proceed. I think makes it a bit more challenging. And yeah, that's the main things that I have for now.
Do you think that there's any relationship between how hard a puzzle is and how good it is or how successful it is?
Ooh, I that's a tough question. I think there is a positive correlation there. I think like harder puzzles generally get more praise, probably because like over the course of battling with a puzzle, I think you kind of learn to appreciate it more. But there are still like very many easy puzzles that are very, very beautiful. Like uh, for instance, there's a bunch of 2-star and 1-star puzzles that are fantastic that like I would love to solve for the first time again. That just like it's a simple puzzle, but it's still easy. But making a puzzle good in the sense that like it's a difficult and brilliant puzzle, generally just a consequence of that is it's going to be a little bit harder, I think, usually.
So, would you rather set something that's hard because it showcases a really hard theoretical concept, or something that's hard because every little deduction is kind of well hidden and you have to do a lot of hunting, but maybe the deductions aren't hard by themselves? Or both or neither?
Well, I've set kind of both of those before. I think that this particular puzzle, the bagel, kind of falls into the second category. And really, I'm not so good at trying to do the first kind uh, that you mentioned. So I think I would be better at creating a puzzle uh, of the second kind, the kind that it's just a massive puzzle and you have to do a little bit of hunting for things, but there's always going to be something to do, as opposed to a puzzle where you need some kind of deep theory in order to understand it.
Yeah, I personally am very much more on your side of that spectrum, and I think Gliperal is very much more on the opposite side.
I prefer more agent style puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that we've very much seen that entire spectrum represented in the conversations we've had today. Let's zero in on this puzzle, though. So who is your victim, and what did they ask you for, or what did they ask you not to do?
Okay, my victim was Chad, and Chad let me know in his message to me that he enjoys Sudokus with either non-standard grids, for instance, getais, or non-standard values, so like zeros and negatives and modifiers, or novel and complex concepts in the puzzle. And so I decided, well, I think I can probably do some kind of gatai, just like put a whole bunch of grids together, and something with non-standard values. And so I did. I ended up with both of those featuring very heavily.
So that's the first time in this conversation this afternoon that we've had someone say Sudoku specifically is what was requested here. Like, I had somebody who's very much a Sudoku solver. Are you typically a Sudoku setter? I don't know your work super well. So are you more on the Sudoku side or the pencil puzzle side?
I had basically never set any pencil puzzles actually before joining this. And so I was hoping I would get somebody who requested a Sudoku, and I did. So
you
I got a little bit
very,
lucky
very
here.
well matched. That's fantastic.
Yep.
I definitely had a moment of terror that I would be paired with somebody who said, absolutely no numbers anywhere in my grid. I only solve loop and shading. And luckily I got somebody who was kind of in the middle of that spectrum and didn't want Sudoku but was comfortable with stuff that had numbers in it. But tell us about this puzzle that we're looking at. So we actually had to cut down the rules because you've promised to tell us about some of the rules because they were far too large to fit on our screen. So walk us through it. Teach us about this puzzle. This is the first thing that the solver would see when they open it up, right?
Yeah. So a lot of the size of the rules just comes from me listing out in the rules what each of the modifiers is. There's 10 possible modifiers here. Anyway, this is an 8-grid puzzle. Like, it's a 8 9x9 Sudoku grids, and there's a number in the top corner of each grid.
And I can't help but notice are there no clues in the grid, or are we going to see those when we zoom in on just one specific grid? I think we get clues when we look at just one of them, right?
We don't know which grid is which.
Okay,
right?
yeah, fair. We have to assume
Yeah,
that,
so
right? Okay.
So the reason that there are no clues in this grid is because it would be really, first of all, it would be too small at this scale to see the clues for the most part. And second of all, you have to place the grids yourself in here. There's 8 different grids that are all like spread out across the pages of a 12-page document that I sent to Chad, which each contained one of those grids. And so, like, all of the grids have been removed from here, and they're just like their own separate tabs because it would be too large otherwise to fit into this.
And my understanding is we have some modifier rules that operate on the whole puzzle. Can you talk us through what's going on with our modifiers?
Yeah, so I took a lot of inspiration from Yutrio's loop drawing puzzles, where you were going to like draw this loop throughout the grid that doesn't touch itself orthogonally or diagonally. And I took some inspiration from that, and I'm like, what can I do here? And I was thinking, and then I'm like, what if I could just make every single grid have a different modifier attached to it? And you have this loop that just goes through all of the grids and just gives every grid a different modifier. And yeah, that's basically what I settled on. There is one more little detail, one kind of hitch to that, which is that there are grids that are contained in there's boxes that are contained in multiple grids here. And so I was thinking about that, and I'm like, I think what I could probably do is have it apply both of them in order. And I'll go over what the modifiers are in a second here. But basically what's going on is we have this loop that travels all the way around the bagel.
Oh, looks like we just lost Samu's connection for a second.
I will say, having both of the modifiers apply to the sections where the grids overlap is very satanic, and I kind of love it.
That's monstrous. That's actually very exciting. Yeah, so maybe just by glancing at the rules, we can get a jump on this. Yeah, Samu is restarting. He's got a fantastic pose down there. He'll be back in a second. So what do we have? So we have a loop that's traveling the entire way around the bagel. What are the rules for the loop? Is this like a loop can't touch itself situation?
It travels orthogonally and may not touch itself, not even diagonally. So snake.
Okay,
basically.
yeah, so snake loop. And then every digit on the loop is modified in, and it says very clearly, 1 or 2 of the ways listed below.
Right. So
And that's going to depend on which grid it's in.
which grid or which grids?
Which grids, because the cells that are on the loop within 2 grids are modified in 2 ways.
So shall we just run down the different
Yeah.
modifiers while we're waiting
So,
for some?
My first question is, so when we have this booklet that has each of the grids shown, are those each associated with a modifier already, and we know which modifier applies to the grid, and we just have to figure out where to put it, or do we also not know
Which booklet?
what so there's like a whole set of puzzles that are the ones that we're trying to fit.
Yeah, I'm looking at one of them. I think it's
I'm
not
back.
given
I'm so
which
sorry
modifier
about that.
applies.
No worries. We just
Am I
discussed
back?
the loop. Yeah, you are back. We were just talking about how the loop operates here. And then we were about to talk about the modifiers.
Not know which modifier applies to which grid.
Okay.
Specifically, it just says that one of the modifiers applies to this grid.
Okay, so we have a set of subgrids. We have to place the right subgrids in the right positions.
Oh my
and
gosh.
then we also
I'm
have
so
to
sorry.
determine which modifier applies to each of them. All right, welcome
Goodness.
back. Hopefully you're stable now. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, now I can't hear anything. This is really tragic. I'm so sorry.
Take your time.
He can't hear us.
Oh, there we go. I'm back.
Oh,
Now I can hear.
success.
Fantastic. So you can hear us now, Samu?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh
So
my
yeah, I
gosh.
was just trying to say, we
Well,
just
yeah.
talked through how the loop works for the benefit of chat. And then my understanding is that we've been given a set of 8 grids. We don't know which modifier applies to which grid, and we also don't know where in this bagel each grid is going to be placed. So we need to figure out both of those two
Exactly.
things. And then in addition,
Yep.
in the overlapping areas, the loop cells will be affected by both modifiers that apply
Yep.
to the 2 overlapping grids. So tell us
Yep.
about the
And then-
modifiers. What are our modifier options?
All right. So all of these except for one are pretty standard. And the one that isn't standard is the very first one, averagers. And I did kind of invent this, but only really for plot purposes and really no other reason. Basically, an averager is going to take the value of the average of its cell and the up to 4 orthogonally adjacent cells. So that would be like the cell above, below, left, and right of it. And it would be the average of that.
And does
Now,
that imply that there's definitely an integer average, or does it round?
No, it can round to, well, it wouldn't even round. It's just a decimal value. For instance, if it was in a corner, it could be like a repeating decimal even.
Okay, you definitely belong here. Okay, go on. What are our other modifiers?
Okay, the other ones are pretty standard, but a little bit devilish to try to implement. The C is copycat, which a cell is going to take the value of the cell 180 degrees rotated in its subgrid. That one's also pretty cursed in terms of trying to draw a loop through. The rest of them are all just, if you take a digit X, then you just modify it to like some like arithmetic operation to it. So doublers just take X to 2X. Halvers take X to 1/2 times X. Incrementers, X plus 1. Negators is negative X. Reflectors are 10 minus X. Squarers are X squared. Tenifier just sets everything to 10. There's no, like, you don't do anything else. It's 10. And then nullifiers just sets everything to 0.
I mean, one thing that's jumping out at me in listening to you read the rules is just the humor that you've imbued this with. It seems very fun and very charming. I mean, it sounds like you really had fun setting this. Is that fair to say?
I think so. I did have a lot of fun creating this.
So I'm curious, when you were coming up with this list of modifiers, did you at some point like run out of standard options and like let's just make all of them 10, or did you
Yes,
intentionally put in okay?
Yeah, I added averagers for that reason, and then I actually reached out to Isaiah on Discord, and I'm like, I need some modifiers. Quick, give me some modifiers. And he pointed me to a few places where there were some less than standard modifiers, and I implemented those. For instance, incrementers, I've only seen in a couple places. Tenifier, I had actually set with tenifiers before. I find it hard to believe that I would have invented them, but at least I have a puzzle with them. And yeah, what else?
So
Yeah, averagers and tenifiers were the main two. Sorry.
Having said this, what is your favorite modifier and what is your least favorite modifier?
Okay. In terms of what to work with when you're making a puzzle like this, working with copycat is probably easily the worst. Like trying to especially if you're trying to conceptualize how it's going to play around with the other modifiers. Like if we have one of those overlapping boxes, trying to figure that out is absolutely horrifying.
Okay, so I'm wondering how we're gonna go about playing Spot the Break-In with this. So we have a link up for one of the grids.
Yeah, should we switch over to that now?
Yeah, let's take a look at the specific grid. So that should have also changed on your screen, Samu.
It did, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so what are we looking at here?
Okay, this is the first grid that I gave to Chad, the first subgrid. Each grid is going to have a different constraint applied to it. So this one is a ciphered killer. And luckily, and this was more for ease of me setting than anything else, I decided while I was making this that it would also play with which modifiers are assigned to which grids. Yeah, you can see in the center here it says Chad and then Satan underneath it. I thought that was fun.
Theme, but...
Yeah, that's a wonderful little touch, actually. I mean, we've seen some cute visual themes and some cute little flourishes like that, but that's really, really charming.
Yeah, I really was I'm glad I got to make that. So yeah, there is a bit in the rules here. I don't know, can the people on Twitch see the rules to this one or no?
It will probably be easier just to describe the rules for this one, because it seems like just standard cipher killer.
Yeah, it is standard cipher killer. The only difference with that is, first of all, you have the loop running through, so there's a bunch of modifying happening, and you don't know what's being modified. But also, the digits 0 through 9 are replaced with the letters on the right, and each of them is an abbreviation for one of the modifiers in the big bagel. So, like this list, A, C, D, H, I, N, R, S, T, Z, this is exactly the abbreviations that I use for the modifiers in the big grid. And the reason for that is because the digits 0 through 9 are obviously going to be assigned uniquely here. And I wanted it to be the case, mostly for my own peace of mind, that if we do the cipher here correctly, then, like, let's say D is 3, for instance, then that would imply that doublers are in subgrid 3. And then 0 and 9 are just not used.
Okay, so
That is very
Okay, that's
fun.
absolutely insane. So
And-
it strikes me that we have 10
No, this
different
actually
modifiers,
helps
too.
though.
Like, how did I not
This
notice
is-
this? We have 10 modifiers, and we only have 8 grids.
0 and 9
Yep.
are not assigned.
Okay, I didn't quite catch that. So the grid
Yeah.
IDs are 1 through 8 only.
Yep.
So, is this the only grid that has the cipher in it, or do all of them have a cipher?
This is the only grid with the cipher.
God,
The other
It's
grids
absolutely wild.
look basically standard, but you can tell pretty quickly for most of them that you can't do them with the digits 1 through 9. Just won't work. But yeah, in this case, this grid has a cipher applied to it.
Good lord. I mean, my first thought, and this thought is absolutely not going to end up being fruitful, was can I find any kind of points of stability to get into this from? Like, are there any cells where I can be confident that there isn't modifier action happening? And I'm going to say the answer to that is no, there aren't.
The answer is no. But we
No,
don't
any
know.
cell could be modified, yeah.
Because, I mean, it's just the loop can travel freely throughout the grid. It's not like it's constrained.
But the fact that we have 3-digit numbers in some killer cages, I feel like the only one that works for that is squarers. But I could be wrong
Interesting.
about that.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing.
Okay.
And the center of this grid specifically does not overlap any of the other grids, so we would know that this grid specifically, and in fact, not even this cell could overlap any of the other grids. So, like,
This
all of the cells
grid
in the
owns
tan.
squarers. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
my
fair to say.
instinct.
Right.
Oh.
Right. I would think like
wow.
H has to be 1, I think, because I don't know how you can get that cage to 200 or more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Valid.
absolutely can't. Yeah.
And once we know H is 1, then we could go back to the original grid, and therefore halvers would be in grid 1. Is that correct?
Yeah, and in addition, we know that the loop travels through both cells of the HAD.
Mm-hmm.
And we also know that it's going to travel through a minimum number of cells of the TAN, except that it's only going to be... Why am I, like, trying to touch the screen to indicate? I can touch the mouse, too. We also know that it's going to go through at most one of these 2 cells.
Could it not go through both?
Well, it has to go through both of these, and it can't touch itself.
That's
It's
right,
snake
because it's
rolls.
snake rolls.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's going to go through
okay,
at most
okay.
one of those, so it either is like that or like that, because I don't think it goes through... How many squares do we have to have here?
It can go through at most 3 of the cells.
I mean,
of the
what's like
tan cage, I
9
think.
squared plus 8 squared plus 7 squared plus 6 squared? Like, what's our... Go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be at least 200, right?
We're both math majors. Just not that that's relevant here.
I don't think it can get 4. I think the most it can get is 3.
Okay.
So 81 plus 64 plus 49.
It's going to be 194?
I would believe
Is that right, Samo? I assume that's relevant.
Yeah, that's relevant for sure.
Which just barely gets us up
Yeah,
to 2
so
0
now-
something.
Yeah, so now we know that T is 2 for sure, right?
I think that makes... Yeah, T would be 2, H would be 1. I think A has to be 0 if it's 194. I don't think we can get as high as 210.
Yeah. So 194, and then the most we could go past that. Can't we get to 210? Oh, no, we can't, because we would have already used 8 and 9 as squares in the grid.
yeah.
And I assume, so I can't really read it from here, but the killer rule, is it about distinct values in a cage or distinct digits?
Oh no,
Just
it's distinct digits, yeah.
Thank goodness. Okay. the one time you've answered one of my questions in like not the most satanic possible way this afternoon. Okay, so yeah, I agree with you that it touches at most 3 of those.
And I don't think it can use this cell, because if it did, it would either do that... Oh, it could do that. Wow. Never mind.
Fair, okay.
I think that means it always takes this cell, maybe?
So humor me and help chat out and mark H, T, and A, because we
Sure.
know those digits, and I feel like there's going to be more shenanigans here. So A is 0, T is 2. God, I would love if this was all we could get out of this, and we immediately had to go hunting for other grids to like use those.
No, I will say there is more you can do here.
Okay, so I will ask you actually, even though this is a little bit of a spoiler, in the course of the solve path of this puzzle, is it more the case that you can kind of dig deeply into one of the grids and like kind of really find some substantial stuff, or is there a lot of bouncing around and kind of seeking the next thing that you can do? Gliperal is currently pulling up Windows calculator.
Yeah, I will say I don't shy away from doing calculations in my puzzles. That is definitely a theme of my catalog. But yes, normally for almost all of the grids, it's possible to dig deep enough into it and get a fair amount of progress into the grid, looking at that grid specifically.
Yeah, in my entry form, I think I dared whoever got assigned me as their victim to try to make me hate math. So, and they didn't quite succeed, though they did come pretty close, if you remember.
Okay, so here's an interesting point. HAD has to be at least 100, meaning it definitely has at least one 8 or 9. It can't have both, because then TAN could not have both 8s and 9s. So I think we've got 1, 8, 9 up here, and then 1, 8, 9 over here, and therefore this cell is definitely used.
Oh.
And therefore the snake cannot go this way, because then it would only take
because
two
they couldn't
cells
take any of their
in a
cells.
TAN.
Okay.
So I think it has to connect like that. It can't take this cell.
So it literally has to be the case that you identified before.
Well,
oh no, it could also be like that.
that,
Yeah.
but-
So we do know a cell that it can't take, which is fun. We know, yeah,
Correct.
it can't take that one. And we know a cell it definitely takes, which is row 6, column 5.
Row 6, column 5. Yeah.
Yeah, whenever I do a Yttrio style puzzle, I always use shading for the loop and non-loop. I just think it's easier to do that way.
We can also
If you want to
use
continue doing it
some
this way, you
non-loop
definitely can.
shading
but-
here, because we have snake can't touch itself, so we can do some shading around that if you want to go ahead
That's
and
true,
do that,
that's
just to
true.
clean up a bit.
An interesting point as well. Does HAD, it can't have a 7 now because we know the 7 has to go in TAN. Does it have to have a 6? No, 5 would work. 25 plus 81.
Plus 81 would
just
be,
barely is
okay.
106. Does it have to have a 9? 64 plus
Ooh.
36?
That
Is
doesn't do it. It's
100.
100, so that doesn't do it. Yeah, so it
definitely
does have to have the 9. Oh man, so we can place it. We got a digit.
We got
Literally got a digit. Oh man, easy puzzle. If I'm not
Yep,
spending
what
at
is
least 9
that?
hours.
What is that?
first,
One
I'll
digit
do it.
place, I don't know, like 647 to go or something?
Oh good lord.
That's a good way of framing it.
And I mean, I'm somebody who sets very, very big puzzles, and I still felt the fear that I'm sure that you intended your victim to feel on first looking at this. That is a lot of grid.
Oh, and in fact,
It is, for sure.
36 plus 81 doesn't work, does it? Because it would not be 10 something. It would be 11.
Oh, fun!
So I
Because
think
we
it-
know the A is a 0 from the tan cage. Yeah,
So I think it
absolutely, that
to
has to be a 5-9.
25 plus 81, which makes D
6.
6.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that was a fun fact. That was a very fun fact that I learned while setting this puzzle, is that if you're given the numbers 1 through 9, the only way to make a number adding up to 1, 0, something is 9 squared plus 5 squared, other than 100, which it can't be in this case.
Really? That is wild.
That is so cheeky.
Yeah, it was fun to figure out. But yeah,
Yeah, not even.
that's
40
a
minutes,
math
doesn't
thing
it?
for sure.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, that's such a fun fact. I love that. Okay, so we've got a digit. Now,
Yep.
Now what? I'm curious about the loop traveling through that C
I
cage.
just noticed these are also both 3-digit.
Yeah, okay.
That's
But can we
question
have
mark
leading
answer.
zeros? That would be
No,
equal.
leading zeros, not
Okay.
for question mark, please.
For the second time, you're not being maximally satanic. Okay.
And therefore these snakes.
Man, I should have done
have
that.
to-
Probably should have, honestly.
And therefore these snakes have to join each other, so this guy can't turn down.
Oh, gorgeous. Oh, I love that. So that's the case that we were looking at that has that going horizontally, and we can, oh yeah, we can shade a ton of stuff. Okay.
So we do need to keep in mind that the cells in box 1 could be subject to 2 modifiers.
Yep.
Oh no. Oh, James, why did you go and say that? Oh no.
Oh yeah, I actually didn't catch that. Yeah, that's a very good catch.
Oh no.
I don't know why I was nodding along to
They
that.
would still have to be squares, would they not? Because even if what's the
Well,
the
it
double
could be
grid-
squares, but then you could do something else to it as
could be a
well.
square and
For instance, this one obviously won't happen, but it could be a square and then a nullifier,
Okay,
so it'll just set it to 0.
The problematic case is the case where like row 3, column 3, I think, is both a squarer and a doubler, and then the loop doesn't go through row 3, column 4.
But definitely
Yeah.
these two are both squares. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Interestingly, some of these modifiers as well, it matters the order in which you take the modifiers.
Yeah,
Like
Chad
if
was
you
talking
double
about
something
that,
and
yeah.
then square it, that's different than squaring and then doubling. And in that case, the order comes down to whichever grid has a smaller index, that modifier is applied first. So like, for instance, if you have the intersection between grids 1 and 2, for instance, that like the grid 1 modifier would be applied and then the grid 2 modifier would be applied.
So in this case, this is grid 1, correct? Am I reading that right?
No, the Haver grid is grid 1.
Oh, sorry. This is grid 1 in Roman numerals, I guess. I just used Roman numerals because I just used Roman numerals because I've already used like everything else basically. So you need to figure out which grid this is out of these 8. Basically.
No, I was just having a moment there. I understand what we're trying to do here. Man.
Yeah, gotcha.
My man's over here saying he ran out of letters, numbers, and modifier types.
I ran out of everything. I pulled out all the
literally-
stops for this.
Okay. Oh, that's fascinating. Can we still say anything about the loop traveling through those?
Well, the other kind of interesting point is that if this is not the doubler's grid, and which I think it kind of has to in order to be big enough, if it's any of the other grids and we do have to take both of those, it really feels like the loop has to do like this sort of thing, which would mean that it would have to do that
Which means it has to be
in
the topmost.
every grid.
Well, it means it has to be the topmost grid, right?
Or the leftmost grid.
Or the leftmost grid, correct? Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
Well, it couldn't be
Okay.
the
There are-
topmost grid,
yeah.
because the topmost grid is 1, and 1 is the Havers.
Okay, fair. Whew.
Is it not necessarily true? I guess.
Yeah, I can think of at least one case
Well,
that.
go on, you've got the mouse.
Yeah, here,
Let's see the
please,
alternative.
please, yeah, no.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that you haven't reached. Well, you've definitely reached a way to get a very high number, but there are multiple ways to get very high numbers in one cell.
So there is tenifier.
Oh, I forgot about tenifiers.
And
Okay,
that
yes.
said, are any of those possibly like a tenified and squared? Oh, but the square would the square apply before or after the tenifier? I don't think we know yet.
It depends on.
Yeah,
well,
I mean, it depends on the order, and we don't know the order for those two yet.
No, the tenifier would definitely apply first since it's grid 2.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
the only thing smaller is Havers.
But
Trying to figure out what's the highest number that could be in this. Would it be 18 squared?
Yep, that's 324. Yeah,
okay.
it's a pretty large number. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I guess tenifier in the top left grid there would admit the possibility that the loop travels through both row 3, column 3 and row 3, column 4, but it wouldn't work for row 1, columns 3 and 4 because we know that our middle digit in that total is not 0.
Right.
Tenifier would give us a maximum of 10. Oh, but yeah, it would give us a maximum of 109 if the loop doesn't travel through the other cell.
Yeah.
So, but tenifier does admit the possibility that it travels through both cells of, or that it travels through only one cell of the bottom cage that we're looking at there.
Yeah.
Okay. Palfly's reminding us that we know that N is 3 or 4. Oh, because of the TAN cage, presumably? Yeah, thank you, Palfly. You're reading my mind there.
Okay, walk me through the math. So it's 7 squared plus 8 squared plus 9 squared is...
I just worked this out a minute ago. 194.
194, I think, yeah.
Yep.
194, okay. And then we've got a minimum of... So we have to get up to at least 3, so we have to add at least 9 in the remaining 2 cells.
We can't use a 5.
And therefore we have to use a 6. And
correct.
either a 3 or a 4.
Yep, it seems right to me.
Yeah, and the highest we can go is adding 10.
So yeah, I believe N is either 3 or 4.
Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect, okay.
And specifically it correlates with if we have a 3 in the cage or a 4 in the cage.
Interesting. Okay.
Unfortunately... Oh, that does make this at least... Does that help? No, because we could, like, double a 6 and then square it to get 140.
Yeah. Yeah, there really are a lot of options, and I did design the puzzle in that way, is so that at first the number of options just looks absolutely horrifying, but then once you get going a little bit, the options slowly start to fade away a little bit.
So we'll ask you the same
So
question we asked... Oh, go ahead, James, please.
Yeah, like would the solver need to kind of figure out this grid before they can make much progress elsewhere, or does every grid have like a bit of a break-in of its own?
Well, that's a little bit of a spoiler, but I can give it still.
You can plead the fifth if you want.
I will for a moment here, I think.
Or I think this cell can't be 1, because then C would be 1, which it can't, whether it's a square or not.
And if it's of course, if it's a 4, it can't go, the loop can't go through it.
Yeah,
It's
if
potentially relevant.
If it's a 4, C would have to be 4. If it's a 2, C would have to be 4. If it's a 3, C could be 3 or 9. So I guess C is limited to 3, 4, or 9. And we have some low digits in this SA cage.
And we do know that S is an absolute minimum of 3.
Yeah.
And do we know... Okay, so Gliperal, hear me out.
Yes.
There should be some limits on how many cells of the SA cage the loop can go through, because we know we have a loop cell in row 5, or in row 6, column 5.
Oh,
So we definitely can't pass through all 3 cells in SA.
Well, we definitely...
Do we need to pass through 2 of them?
We definitely can't take this cell at all. Because if we did, the loop would have to do that, and then the only way...
And then it would touch that in row 3, column 3, which is busted.
That's true, that's also broken.
Okay, so we're definitely not taking that. Do we have to take both of the other 2 in order to get up to... No, because it could... Oh man, we're so close to a revelation here. Okay, what if the only one that it takes... Okay, so... Alright. I'm gonna try to speak some coherent English for a second.
Does it have to square this?
I think so. That's what I'm going for, because I think it has to obviously have a squarer, because it's got to be at least 30, and it's only got 3 freaking cells in it. It can't share any of those cells with another grid, so like there's no shenanigans going on. It is just squarers. And it definitely can't be exclusively the middle cell that gets squared and nothing else. Like, it can't just zoop right through.
Because the best we can do with
16 plus 3 plus 9, which is not good enough.
Yeah, so this has to be...
So that definitely has to get squared. Okay.
The snake
now
is going this way.
Question. Do we know, do we by any chance know that S is lowish now?
Well, this could be as big
as
it
could be a 9. Yeah, let's stop. Oh, I was really hoping for that, because wouldn't it be hot if that ended up being like an NS3-4 pair? That would have been really cool.
Well, this definitely could just be 1, 2, 3, or 4.
squared plus 3 squared is 25, plus 2 is... No, absolutely not. Absolutely it could not. Could even be 5. It could be 5, yeah. It could definitely be 5.
30...
It could be 5 if it goes through the cell above it.
Okay, just barely, yeah.
Okay, this is... I almost feel like we're working up like a loop end kind of a situation with that like trap that it's passing through going to the bottom left.
Interesting.
And then that kind of like funky... Sam was nodding. So either he thinks I'm saying something very foolish or very intelligent.
Yeah, well,
Maybe
we'll see, I guess.
Okay, I guess we'll find out. Sit on your hands.
So the loop has to go through the cage in box 4, because R is at least 3.
Oh, good point. It does have to... Yeah, it's going to have to cover at least one of those, not necessarily both. Interesting. Go on, James. James is just like...
That goes any farther right now.
Oh, wow, okay.
If you guys would like a question to consider, I can give one.
Sure.
Go for it, yeah.
Where are 1 and 2 in the central box?
Oh, they are definitely outside of the...
Yeah, that's
pad
true.
and tan
They're definitely...
pages.
Yeah, they're definitely in column 4.
So I guess SA has a 1 for sure.
Oh, okay. Okay, then. Huh.
Oh, and if it had 1 and 2...
A is 0.
A is 0, so we'd have to square something to get 5.
Which...
Or... No, wait. Yeah, it would have to be a 2 squared, a 1, and a 5.
Okay, which is fine.
It would make S3.
That would work.
3 would make S3. But A being 0 is very, very relevant here. Like, I'm sure of it.
Yep. That means it's a multiple of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, I would say that I really like working with modular arithmetic.
Oh, well, 1.
Okay.
Just as an aside.
You just thought you would say that right there. Just
Yeah, I
just
just
to
thought I'd
tell us something
say
that you
that.
enjoy while we're interviewing you. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite ice cream flavor while you're just telling us your preferences?
I don't know, mint chocolate chip's pretty good.
Based.
I guess we can talk about what these guys can be modulo 10.
Uh-huh.
5.
Yeah.
5 would
Well,
be
you gotta add it to 0 modulo 10 because it's a multiple of 10.
Yeah, so when we're squaring the 5, we get 5. 6, we get 6.
Yep.
7, we get 9. 8, we get 4. And 9, we get 1.
And this could be either 1, 2, 3, or 4, or it could be 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, or 4 squared.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's something just disgusting going on here. I'm starting to sense it. And we
You also know for sure that 1
there's
is
a 1
included.
for sure, yeah. So the other ones have to sum to 9 mod 10. Oh.
So what sums to this to make 9? Well, definitely not 9 and 0. So we can eliminate
that's
the
true.
9
The 9 is straight out. Okay. So yeah, could be 6 and 3 with no squaring.
Mm-hmm.
Could be 5 and 4, which might or might not involve squaring.
Mm-hmm.
Can
There's
it be
no 4
6 and
5.
3 with no
4 and
squaring?
5, so 4
Shut up,
is
Samo.
out.
We're solving a puzzle. Sorry. And 1 is out too, because we can't get 8s to go with the 1.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, also it can anyway. That's my bad. I made the puzzle. That doesn't mean I know how to solve it.
I mean, I've been there a
Whoops.
million times where you are right now. I respect it.
It definitely is either 6 and 3 or 5 and 4. So we can eliminate everything that's not
A 3 or a 4, yeah. Or a 1, obviously.
So this can't be a 2. This is down to any
It
of
could be
them.
anything, unfortunately. Oh no, but the 5-6 is cute.
It is cute.
Unfortunately, we don't know we have to have a squarer either. That's kind of... okay.
Yeah. Well, what's its? Can I ask
Yeah,
a
I think
question?
we are running out of time,
yeah.
so I think it's
Yeah.
time probably for Samo to take
Yeah.
over and educate us.
Well, what's its maximum now?
16 plus 1.
If we do 6 squared plus
Am I getting
plus
my
3
3-4
plus
pair?
1.
Am I getting my 3-4 pair that I said would be hot?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly what's happening here. The maximum is 40, so
Yeah, S and
Wait.
N are a 3-4 pair.
Hang on, I'm confused.
Well,
36 plus 16 is definitely more than 40.
36 plus 4.
Can't the 4 be squared?
Not if you add it to 36, because that doesn't come out to that doesn't come out to 0 mod 10.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I did not.
Because the thing, like, here's the story of what happened. We eliminated all the big numbers, like, almost by happenstance, because they didn't come out right with the modulo 10 thing. And now we're looking at it and we're like, oh man, we only have small numbers left. Great,
Gotcha.
now we can only go up to 40. So we know that that's a 3 or a 4, so we know that C is 9.
Wait. Walk me through again why. What about like 6 squared plus 9? Is
Where would you put the
45
9?
plus. Okay, that's too small. And 5 squared plus 16 isn't enough. No, yeah, okay. Okay, I'm with you.
Okay.
Took me a while.
Yeah, so we've got a 3-4 pair and an S, and so now C is 9, which tells us that the digit in the C cage is a 3, which is going to bounce back and tell us how to work that cage below it.
Gotcha, because now a 3 has to be squared.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, Palfly is also celebrating my 3-4 pair. Oh, that's awesome.
That is very cool.
Wow.
yeah.
What a
this
puzzle.
is the main break-in.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And is that the first thing that you set when you were putting this together?
Yes, it is. Basically, what I did was I tried as hard as I could to not have to worry about like all these weird modifier combinations. So I got it down to just the 8 that I was going to be working with, basically from the jump.
Well, that is absolutely
Sorry.
delightful. I mean, I really enjoy when a puzzle makes me laugh and celebrate when I'm solving it. So what a puzzle. Yeah, I'm hoping that you'll stick around. We're going to take like 5 minutes to set everything up for the panel discussion. I'm hoping you'll stick around and chat with us a little bit more. Gliperal has some big
absolutely.
questions about the nature of Satan. Do you have any further thoughts about this puzzle? Somebody will put the link in the chat. Anything else you want to say to chat real quick while we have you on your own here?
Yeah, I don't know. It was really fun to set. Like normally the method that I use when I'm making puzzles is I'm just thinking in just like my everyday activities, and I'm like, wow, like if you just add up the first 11 numbers and then you multiply it by 6, that's 9 away from the total in a Sudoku grid, 405. And I'm just thinking about this stuff like constantly, and I'm just like, wow, that's cool stuff. I wonder if I could implement that somewhere. So yeah, like I was thinking about the same sort of thing here, like if I just do like if I add up 5 squared plus 6 squared plus 7 squared plus 8 squared plus 9 squared, what do I get? And like just all these different kinds of things. And so that's actually how I got this configuration in the center, as I was just thinking of stuff like that. I'm like, that's really forcing, actually. I wonder if I could do something with that. And
well, that definitely made me eager to look at the rest of it. So yeah, if we can drop a link to that in chat so folks can check this out. Right on.
There's a lot of links. Let's see. I can put all the links in, at least in the Discord. There's a fair amount of links. There's 8 links for each. There's 8 links, 1 for each subgrid, and then there's the main link for the big thing.
Maybe we'll figure out.
So I can get those pulled up if you want.
Well, let's go ahead and go to like a 5-minute break at the very least, just to get the screen set up for our panel discussion, and then Samu will be back with us, and so will Maze Gator again, and we'll all address some satanic questions. So I'll see you guys shortly.
guys, we're back. We're going to have a little bit of a panel discussion now with Maze Gator and Samopiano and James Sinclair, all of whom were part of the setting team this year for Secret Satan. James, of course, we did not see his puzzle, but he's going to be joining us as well. And I guess my first question for you three is just, what did you think of the Satan experience? I know some of you guys have done it before and some of you are completely new.
James, how about we start with you, because you haven't gotten a chance to tell us about your experience doing Satan.
Yeah, I mean, it's I did it for the first time last year, and I think if I remember right, the Secret Santa was kind of delayed getting started last year, and then I heard about Secret Satan, and I was like, well, maybe I'll. And then I wound up doing both, but it just seemed like a fun challenge because I don't normally set out to make puzzles as difficult as possible, and I don't think I'm great at that, but yeah, I guess it was a fun challenge, and it's a real learning experience to try to figure out what is a hard deduction that is still fair, and I'm not sure that I have a handle on that yet, but maybe in a few years.
All right, how about you, Maze Gator? How would you summarize your Satan experience?
Outstanding fun. I mean, from the anticipation of wondering who you're going to get to those initial few days of planning and considering what you're going to do, to the terror of thinking, am I going to be able to pull this off? Can I get it to work? To the satisfaction to having a completely finished puzzle, and then to see your Satan-y enjoy it was awesome.
Yeah. And for me, of course, it was my first time participating in this event, but it was run excellently. Like, the deadlines were great, had like enough time to get everything set up. And as Maze Gator said, the kind of anticipation of like, what am I gonna receive? How am I even gonna make something for my person? It was all a part of the experience, and it was really, really fun to put together.
So I'm curious.
Yeah, I'll add that like a fun part of this is that you kind of forget sometimes that at the end of it you're going to receive a puzzle also. It's so much fun to make one, and also somebody made one for me. That's great.
That is an interesting point as well, because I know for me, one of the reasons I started Secret Satan is because I wanted to make hard puzzles, not necessarily because I wanted to solve them. Although I have received some absolutely amazing puzzles the past few years, and I've had a great time solving them. So I'm curious, do you put more value in Secret Satan as a setting event or as a gift-giving event?
I mean, for me, I'll say it was more, I was really looking forward to the opportunity to stretch myself as a setter. For me, the gift-giving aspect was slightly secondary, but still, like I said, that's part of what makes it so special, is you have to think about what your Satan-y would want, and you have to make a puzzle that's going to fit their interests. Is part of the reason why it felt so personal.
I actually had a lot more fear about the solving aspect of it than the setting aspect of it, genuinely. And I mean, I consider myself like not necessarily like a weak solver, but somebody whose mental energy has primarily gone into setting. And I definitely had a certain amount of just discomfort about the possibility of like, what if I'm gifted something that like my solve doesn't do it justice? Like, what if I just like get completely stuck at the very beginning and embarrass myself, and like the person who set for me doesn't feel like their gift went to the right place? Like, I didn't have that same fear as a setter. Like, as a setter, I was like, okay, I feel pretty confident that I can at the very least make something that's spicy and challenging and like appropriate for the person I'm setting for. Like, even though I don't necessarily set a lot of hard puzzles, I felt up to the challenge there. Did anybody else feel kind of like nerves around that? Or did any of you feel nerves around doing the setting aspect of it?
I felt like that 100% for the first hour and a half I stared at Agent's puzzle. I got the thing with the expentomino pretty quickly, but then, and I started poking around some other things, but I definitely had the thought of, oh gosh, I'm not smart enough to solve this. Like I'm a failure. But after a couple of days of just letting it sit in my mind, I started to kind of think, oh, maybe maybe the break-in is related to this idea. And then I had seen others from last year's Secret Satan record themselves doing a solve. And I kind of wanted to do the same thing. And it became apparent pretty quickly that nobody wanted to watch me on camera, like just stare at the screen for like an hour and a half. And so actually what I did is I solved my puzzle completely. I figured out kind of the secrets of the rule set. And then I actually recorded myself doing a solve for the second time. And that puzzle still gave me a fit the second time through that I solved it. But I was able to do it pretty quickly. And then I posted it as a hidden link or hidden comment on Agent's LMD page.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think my fears came true a little bit. You saw some of this with mine. And just to be clear, I absolutely loved the puzzle that I got, but also my experience was I just absolutely beat my head against it, was completely baffled by it, had no idea how to even interpret the rules. And then when I finally solved it, largely by just like metaphorically like grabbing poor Polar, who had tested it, by the throat and shaking her until she told me what the rules were, we discovered that had been the example puzzle, and we had a significantly larger puzzle to solve with the same rule set. Which, oh my god, it was phenomenal. It was beautifully set, and it was absolutely a blast to solve, but I definitely... I had the same experience that you had, Maze Gator, of just spending the first hour and a half just looking at it and thinking, like, I'm in the wrong place. Like, this is not for me. This is the wrong choice. But luckily it came out okay in the end.
Yeah, I remember you had pinged in the Discord, and so I was interested, so I read the rules. I was similarly confused. I mean, my puzzle, I at least understood what the rules were saying, if I didn't understand what they meant.
And mine was one, I think, where in retrospect, of course, the rules make perfect sense and seem very obvious and natural, but when I was looking at them, like, through a lens of not really knowing what to expect, I need more puzzle hunt practice, clearly, to be up to the challenge of that one.
Well, I think your Satan also kind of knew that there might be multiple rules interpretations that could be correct, and therefore they gave you the other puzzle to solve to just get the rules. But then that puzzle
turned out to be kind of hard, actually.
And also, like, exactly your anti-style.
Yeah. No, but it was a worthy satanic gift, I think. Which actually, we can talk about that next question if people have had a chance to kind of give their answers to it, because I think that kind of speaks to it. Which question were we actually on there?
That last one we were talking about the solving experience.
Oh yeah, the setting experience versus the solving experience. That's how we got on the that line of reasoning. Okay.
Yeah, although it makes me wonder, like, some of the comments about setting puzzles for someone specifically, like trying to emulate their style or trying to make something that is appropriate for them, and simultaneously the fear of getting something like, will this be something I can actually solve, is like, how do you approach creating a puzzle for your victims? How do you make sure that it's something that you think they will enjoy solving? And also...
Oh wait, they're supposed to enjoy it?
And also, a similar question is that, because this is Secret Satan, the puzzles are designed to be a little devilish. How do you approach towing the line between, well, I want them to suffer a little, but I also don't want it to be a miserable experience for them?
Yeah, I'm curious if any of you had the feeling at any point, like, oh no, am I making something that's too hard? You know, am I making something that is tipping over that line into unfair? Like, I actually need to tone it down. Or if anybody had the opposite experience of, like, needing to tone it up to make it satanic enough.
Yeah, I know me, with my bagel, at almost every juncture, I decided to do the more satanic of the two options that I was presented with. Like, if you have two grids that overlap, let's just apply both the modifiers and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, just so that I didn't go insane trying to set it, I needed to tone it down a little bit by adding in that cipher so that I was able to set it without having to think about like 720 different combinations of rule sets. But yeah, that's my experience with that.
I think I'm definitely on the side of like I feel like I need to tone it up, compared to some of the other puzzles that I've seen that other people have made. I mean, the one that I made for this year hasn't been solved yet. I don't think it's because it's that difficult, but just the victim hasn't had time. But yeah, I feel like mine are kind of on the tamer end, and I'm constantly looking for what I can do to ramp it up.
And I guess
Then
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to, for mine, I said that one of my main goals was to emulate Ichirio's style, but that I had a lot of intimidation about, because you want to do the style justice, right? I picked it because I thought it was something that he would like, but then I kind of realized, well, he's probably only going to like it if I can execute it well. If I don't execute it well, it's going to be a muddled mess. So for me, that was something I initially had to get over the fear of. But then once I got into it, I think I tended towards making it a little bit easier, because the difficulty of mine was in all the rules that you had to keep organized in your head. I really didn't want to have any deduction be more than like 3-4 star if you knew where to look. But yeah, so I approached the difficulty of my puzzle in being knowing what to do, as opposed to not knowing where to look. Does that make sense? Yeah, knowing where to look as opposed to knowing where to look and then having to think more deeply about it.
And it's interesting you put it that way, because I feel like of the group here, the puzzles that we've seen, Clovers and Maze Gauges and Samu Piano, the difficulty is not necessarily in the deductions themselves, even though a lot of the times they may have been leaning towards the harder end of the spectrum. It's in just understanding this massive thing that has a lot of moving parts to it.
Yeah.
Like, I think all of your puzzles had 4 or more grids that you had to solve simultaneously, which is an interesting point, because it speaks almost to the difference between setting a hard puzzle versus setting a satanic puzzle. Like, the suffering is not necessarily in the difficulty itself so much as it is in just, you open this thing up and you're like, dear God, how do I even begin to approach this?
Yeah, what I was taking inspiration from, and we haven't seen my puzzle on stream, but it has kind of the same character as Samu's, I think, where it's multi-grid, interlocking, kind of don't know which rule belongs to which grid, number placement kind of situation. And what I was trying to channel was like the old school LMD pencil puzzle vibe of like, okay, maybe there's not some intricate global theoretical break-in, but you can easily spend an hour just looking at it, not knowing what's going to yield first, and just kind of chipping away at it. Because for some reason, I don't know why, like I associate that kind of old school, kind of pencil puzzle-y style with the Satan event. And I don't know if it's because I associate that with you a little bit, because I know that you enjoy solving that kind of thing in particular, or if it's like just what pops into my head when I hear satanic puzzle. I mean, can you guys think of any satanic puzzles that you've solved outside of the Secret Satan event? Like, is there somewhere in particular that you looked for inspiration in terms of style? Maybe different setters, different types of puzzles?
One that comes to mind, Christian A is another one of my mentors. Him and Pietato set this. It was a loop crossing. The loop could cross itself, and it was a Japanese sums puzzle, and that was like one of the hardest puzzles I had ever done. If the loop crossed, the cell inside was doubled, and it was a deconstruction, and there were so many possibilities. That's the one that comes to my mind as far as being satanic.
And would you say would you say that one was satanic because of the difficulty of tracking the loop and the crossings and all the options it had, or because the deductions within it were so brutal and so hard to spot?
Yeah, a combination. So for a lot of loop drawing puzzles, there's certain things that you just kind of get to know by muscle memory, or like, oh, the loop has to move here because it can't cross. But now that it can cross, that you have to basically throw your muscle memory out the window. And so there's that aspect to it. And then there was the arithmetic of it. So you have to add numbers to ciphered Japanese sums. And then there was the Sudoku deconstruction part. And Krishna is a master of deconstruction, so you had to use your deconstruction tricks like law of leftovers and things like that. So there were 3 layers in that puzzle that you had to think through simultaneously.
Samo, you had an answer to that one too, right?
Yeah. For me, for inspiration, I look towards Chad's harder puzzles. And the one that really resonated with me was a collaboration that he did called Olympic Inspiration, which was basically you had 5 grids in the Olympic ring placements, basically, and you needed to figure out which grid went with which, and which, I think, types of lines went in which grid, or something like that. So I kind of channeled that for my Satan puzzle for him.
So I guess my last question then for you guys is sort of how would you summarize what a satanic puzzle is? Because I know when you think about it just in general, you think, oh, satanic, so it's a hard puzzle. But is it possible for there to be a satanic puzzle that is easy? Is it... What does the event mean to you?
It's a really tough question. I would say complexity is the number one thing that defines a Satan puzzle. So, to your question, is it possible that a puzzle could be easy? I think it could look easy, but I don't think being easy. I think I was perusing the showcase the other day, and there was a 4x4. And so initially you're thinking, well, how difficult could a 4x4 be? And then you get through the rules and you're thinking, oh my goodness, like that's crazy. Right. So you can build in that level of difficulty and complexity, even though it doesn't look like it, I think.
Yeah, when I think about both of the Satan puzzles that I have set are kind of a little bit whimsical, and kind of I think I approach them from the standpoint of like, well, you want a tough puzzle? Here you go. Here's a big mess of a puzzle. And you know, I hope I pulled it off in a way that was still pleasant to solve. But you know, I think it's something that I like to approach with some whimsicality.
I actually very much agree with that, and that's not how I would have thought to phrase it, just thinking about it on my own, but I agree very much with James that there is something whimsical about the style. It's like, normally you wouldn't just like let yourself go and indulge all of your just like weirdest and most evil puzzle ideas, but in an event like this, you can just say, well, you know, here's this one possible path to take this in, and this reflects kind of what Samu said a few minutes ago. Here's one possible path we can take this in, here's one deduction we can make. But then here's this other one that's just like incredibly gnarly, and normally I would never even touch that, and I would say, okay, the other direction is the one that the puzzle kind of wants to go into, and that will clearly make it easier to set and clearer to solve. But I'm just gonna like indulge myself in this flight of fancy and just choose the completely absurd and ridiculous path. Like, I'm just gonna go all in and just do whatever nasty things come to mind in this puzzle, and like I don't get to like indulge myself like that much outside of Secret Satan and Bitty Bites, which is my super hard 4x4 series that Gliperal and James are also participating in this year. Yeah, whimsical is a really good word to describe the style. I think that very much resonates for me.
Yeah, I think another thing potentially that could make a puzzle satanic, even if it has like, even if every deduction itself is easy, sometimes it's just the scale with which the puzzle itself is operating on is just so large that like satanic is the only word that can really describe it. Like something just absolutely massive that like it's hard to even fit it all in one screen type of large. And so that's kind of course, the direction that I took it in.
I very much vibe with that on some of the like colossal puzzles we've seen on LMD, which
Colossals are very satanic.
And I've had a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but one person in particular come to me and say like, oh yeah, this colossal puzzle is easily a 3 out of 5 star difficulty as long as you know where to look. And it's like, yeah, as long as you know where to look. I did not think that was a 3-star puzzle. I have struggled immensely with all of the colossals that I've solved just from their sheer size, even if all of the deductions within them were relatively straightforward.
So I know we're kind of winding down and we're kind of running out of time, but Malrog has like a really, really compelling question in chat.
Please.
Actually, if you don't mind if I pose that to our panelists. Malrog has asked, do you have to be able to solve hard puzzles to set hard puzzles?
To me, I don't think so. I think it might help, but it's setting and solving, I think, are two completely different activities to me. I mean, when you're setting, you don't have to know where to look, right? Wherever you choose to look is where the clue goes. So, no, I don't think.
I went through all.
I think that I have certainly set puzzles that I have set puzzles that I probably would not solve myself. Not that I couldn't, but that I would probably give up on because they're too hard, and I'm not a very patient solver. And I guess that's maybe part of the appeal of Secret Satan, that somebody makes a puzzle for you and you kind of have to solve it. So you sort of have to focus on it until it's done. But yeah, I mean, I think you should be able to solve your puzzle, but maybe it's something that's beyond your patience level.
I think I almost went through like this U-shaped curve in the course of learning to set puzzles in general, where at first I found it a little easier to set things that were more challenging because I hadn't quite mastered telegraphing, and so my puzzles would come out harder because like I didn't quite have the hang of how to communicate where to look next. And then I kind of went through a phase where I really, really, really zeroed in on like very clean, smooth, good telegraphing, like flow, kind of one deduction to the next to the next. And as I was working more on that, I did start to find it harder to set puzzles that felt hard. And now I feel like I'm almost like kind of coming up the other side of the U curve and like starting to understand where to strategically let go of that and let things be a little bit less smooth and a little less obvious to like add just a sprinkling of difficulty in the right spots. And I've been setting more hard puzzles lately, and I've really been enjoying that. Actually, it's been very different.
And for me, I would argue that I think that my instinct is that yes, you have to be able to solve reasonably hard puzzles to set hard puzzles. Like you can hit a little bit above your grade in the sense that you can make puzzles that are as hard as you can solve, but also require looking in exactly the right spots to make progress. But I don't think you're going to be setting something like Agent's Nurikabe puzzle if you don't have that sort of logic already floating around in your head. I don't think you're going to set, massive colossal bagels like Samu Piano or like Maze Gator if you don't already have the ability to track multiple grids and ciphers all at once. So I think it does necessitate not necessarily that you have to be able to solve your own puzzles, but you at least have to understand the solution path to something that is that hard or equally difficult in order to set something of that degree.
And also knowing what feels fun as a solver too. Right, if you have never solved a hard puzzle, then you wouldn't know about what sorts of things a solver's thinking about or thinks is fair or fun.
Yeah, I feel very similarly there. I think that in order to set a puzzle that's hard but also fair and well telegraphed, that takes a lot of experience with knowing what a fair and well telegraphed deduction looks like. And so you can only really get that experience through solving hard puzzles, in my opinion. And so I do think you need to at least be able to solve hard puzzles in order to set a puzzle that's hard, but also good.
Yeah, and I think there's another interesting point that Malrog made in the earlier question, how you set a hard puzzle with a straightforward rule set. Because in my opinion, that's the hardest thing to do, is like, you can make a hard puzzle just by making the rule set heinous. You can make a hard puzzle by making things that are inherently unintuitive, like having crossing loops when everyone's used to loops that can't cross. But actually setting a hard puzzle that is just a standard rule set, especially one that's had its space well explored.
Yeah, like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not Gliperal and I can't generate new theory on demand. Like, Agent can apparently do this, Gliperal can apparently do this, and when I do sometimes set things with that character, but generally the reason that happens is not because I'm setting for an event and I have a deadline and I'm thinking, okay, I need to produce a puzzle. It's because, like, the idea, like, the theory comes to me first, and then I'm like, okay, how can I showcase this? Whereas for something like Secret Satan, it's a little easier to reach for the other kind of difficulty, like not the straightforward rule set hard theory difficulty.
Yeah, and I guess to that point, you can also sort of just, if you're very familiar with a genre, you can take hard bits of logic that you've seen in other puzzles and cobble them together. Like, for instance, I want to set a classic with an exoset, which is, by the way, impossible. You won't be able to do that.
Have you tried that?
I have not, but God, sounds terrifying. But any of the like pencil puzzle variants, you could almost certainly find a way to force a certain type of logic that you've seen before into the puzzle, and then it would just be on the solver to spot exactly where you are thinking to look and find that deduction. So I don't know, like you can set a hard puzzle with a straightforward rule set by just stealing other people's ideas, and it wouldn't necessarily be a diabolical puzzle, but it would be a hard puzzle, I think. It would be, it would still rely on very specific logic that they'd have to know.
Yeah, this might be controversial, but I feel like it's close to impossible to set a puzzle with a straightforward rule set that's enjoyable to solve that's harder than like 3 stars. I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but I feel like at that level of difficulty, there needs to be kind of something extra going on, or it's probably just going to be really hard in a way that's not enjoyable.
James, I fear for your DMs in coming days.
Sure.
All right, does anybody have any last comments to share with us, with chat? Anything you want to share about the Secret Satan setting experience as we wind down here?
Can't wait for
I wanted
next
to
year.
mention, I kind of missed my chance earlier, but we were talking about wonderfully personalized puzzles. The one that was made for me this year by Tesseralis was a kind of an amazing take on a puzzle that I had made for April Fool's Day in 2024. That I won't go into how it all worked, but it's a really amazing puzzle, and I really appreciated that.
It's really cool when somebody not only manages to emulate your style or riff on your style, but also like flatter your style. Like there were some references even to just comments that I've made on Discord, or like things that I've ranted about in various like setting related YouTube videos in the puzzle that was made for me, and that just was really, I found that incredibly flattering as a setter. Like, oh, not only has something wonderful like this been made for me, but it references my work in a way that makes it clear that this person is like understanding what I want to communicate. It was very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the puzzle that I received for Secret Satan was also phenomenal. It featured basically 3 grids, each with a different rule set that you could sort of stack on top of each other. Where like the grids would have to, like row 1, column 1 of a certain grid would interact with row 1, column 1 of the other grids. And one of the grids was a Sudoku featuring split peas, like the variant that I pioneered earlier this year. And I was really, really flattered by that.
Yeah, I remember solving the split pea lines puzzle in the Sudoku Pillar during our Sudoku Pillar endurance stream. That one stood out as a pretty memorable puzzle. That was you, right? That wasn't somebody borrowing your rule set? Yeah, that was a very charming puzzle, and I remember particularly enjoying that one, which, I mean, that says something for having solved, what, like 120-something puzzles in a single sitting?
There were a lot of
So,
puzzles.
relatively few of them stand out in my mind, and that was one of them.
Yeah, I remember you guys
I guess this is
flew
obvious,
through
but
that.
I hadn't put together the initials before, SP, split peas.
Oh, that's cute. Is that intentional?
Well,
Some of
it
you
wasn't
split
intentional,
peas?
but I'll take it. I realized that about a month after I invented them, I'm like, wait, my initials match up with this. It wasn't intentional at the time.
Went and named it after yourself by accident.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, I think it's
I'll
time
take
for
it,
us
though.
to wind down the stream. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for setting for Secret Satan, and thank you for sharing your work with us. Everybody in chat, please go ahead and buy your SudokuCon tickets. If you're planning on joining us at SudokuCon in April, it's April 3rd to 6th of this year, just a couple months. So if you haven't purchased your ticket yet and you're thinking about joining us, go to SudokuCon.com/tickets, and we're hoping to see you there. Are any of you guys going to be at SudokuCon?
And
James, I know you're
SudokuCon
gonna
is
be
not
there.
about SudokuCon is not about monstrously difficult puzzles. It's about puzzles at all skill levels.
Yeah, there will be some
I'm
of
gonna
this,
be
but there
there.
will also be a lot of much gentler and more accessible stuff, down to we're having a Snackdoku setting party, setting easy 4x4 Sudoku, so there's something for everybody, very, very much so.
Glenn's gonna walk people through creating their own new variants.
Yeah, we're gonna have a really good time. Yeah, thank you guys for being here. Yeah, we really appreciate you, your puzzles and your nuanced takes on everything surrounding this whole project.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. This was awesome, Clover.
Till next time.
Yeah, thank you.